All right, King Killers, we're covering chapters 88 through the epilogue. We're going to finish our Name of the Wind reread, and we will move into the Wise Man's Fears next week. In this one, we discuss the attack by the Skin Dancers. Kvothe goes into the Underthing and discovers a way into the archives. He also sees a nearly naked Fela, and Bast gets gangster with Chronicler. We also talk about Old Cob's continued mastery of the art of storytelling, how Three-Fingered Hobb got his nickname, our amazing idea of doing all future podcast episodes on tape deck, and what Pike might be up to these days. So sit back and enjoy.
Welcome back, you killers, to the top of the line and utmost killer broadcast, King Killer Podcast. Tonight, I am joined by my co-hosts, Dominatrix Dan and Titty Twister Tim. How's it going, guys?
Nice. Going well.
Good.
Dominating.
Good. Got a firm grip.
Good. Well, as you know, this is going to be the culmination of Book 1. So let's dive right in. Chapter 88 is an interlude called Looking. Coach's story of Kvothe is interrupted by customers coming into the inn. And shortly thereafter, Cobb's story about Kvothe is interrupted by a mercenary coming in. Chronicler recognizes him as a member of the gang that robbed him, and Bast recognizes him as Mahale Urit from the Mail. Chronicler pulls a sword out, but the demon breaks it with his hand. A fight breaks out in the inn. Shep is killed. Then the smith's apprentice, Aaron, kills the skin dancer with an iron rod. A crowd and rumors fill the Waystone and eventually disperses. Bast, Kvothe, and Chronicler are left to then postulate on the creature's origin. Guys?
Yeah, and you get the start where Chronicler brings up the fact that said Chronicler stared at the red-haired man behind the bar. There was nothing left of Kvothe in him. It was just an innkeeper, friendly, servile, and so unassuming as to be almost invisible. So you get that Coat versus Kvothe dynamic right off the bat, and Bast and Chronicler, obviously they talk about that at the on the last chapter, and we've obviously talked about it a bunch, but you get it to open up this chapter. You get a good example of it again.
It's been a while since we've been in an interlude, right?
And at least an interlude where, they stopped and some stuff was going on. It wasn't just like a quick dip back into the story, dip out of the story and then dip right back into it.
I mean, it's great because Rothfuss leaves it with so few characters. It's one setting, it's one room basically. I mean, he does leave with Chronicler in that, or when he runs into Chronicler, he's outside of it. But in these chapters, and call it present day, it's very sparse in terms of the description, so it's very easy to get back into where we're at. You know what I mean? Like, because we're back in the Waystone Inn, and we're back with a lot of the same people, and Cobb's annoying as shit. So, like usual, he really ratchets it up here on the annoying factor. He's an annoying son of a bitch in these chapters. But yeah, it's interesting because when it jumped back in, it made me realize, or made me at least feel like we hadn't been here in a while. We hadn't thought, or at least I hadn't thought about Coat, actively in a while as reading, through it, because we've had so many chapters of the heroic Kvothe and his metamorphosis, so to speak.
One thing I just thought of. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, just the action in this one being outside of Kvothe's story, and the action of, these demons or creatures or whatever coming out. It brought me back to the beginning of the book, where that's kind of where you started off and thought things were going. Then you get these little bits and pieces, or really you don't get much of what's going on at the Waystone Inn until now. Within one day at the Waystone Inn, it covers a span of years in Kvothe's life. So probably back to the beginning of the book when the Skrael are, are present and everyone's fearing that.
Yeah, I mean, this is tremendous in terms of where he put it too, because we're coming into the end of the book. So it's reminding us that we have trouble in this world, like bringing that back in and injecting it and then making us realize it again. And something's happening at this point that leads us into this next book. And there's so many different, and we talked about it in the last episode, and I'll continue to talk about in this one, but there's so many things that get you really motivated to find out more about this world and what's going on with it, where Kvothe's life went to get him here, which we still want answers to, and then also where's it going? Where's it going from this point forward? With the skin dancer or stripper, whatever you want to call him, her.
One of the things I just realized too, though, is Kvothe is telling the story to Chronicler, and he's writing down. So we're getting the story word for word out of Kvothe's mouth that he's relaying to Chronicler. But it takes like at least 24 hours to listen to him say all these words. So like the only way he's able to tell this story in one day, he must be talking like super fucking fast. Like that's the only way, because otherwise he wouldn't have enough time to tell this many words in one day. Plus with the breaks and stuff, it doesn't make any sense. So he must be talking like chipmunk speed.
Well, we know Chronicler's got that cipher, so he can take it down quick. We didn't know that Kvothe had that skill.
And think about it, like the second book's like 40 some hours long to listen to, but he has to tell that whole entire story in one day. So think how fast you'd have to listen to it like a double time or triple time for you to really capture how fast Kvothe is talking while he's telling the story. So if you want to get the realism element, do triple time when you listen to the book.
What if they choose to go that route with the television show? Like, well, this is the way it would be. So they have like the Micro Machine guy type individuals.
He takes like a real deep breath.
Like an auctioneer.
He's like,
that's ridiculous.
It would make it interesting anyway.
It would make it less. But okay.
I think you're wrong.
You don't understand real storytelling.
Okay.
You don't understand realism.
The faster people tell stories,
don't understand realism.
Always. If you can't tell a story fast, you better just not tell it.
No.
Yeah. That's
Besides,
that's
it's
how people
Kvothe,
feel
dude.
about it.
It's Kvothe.
It's funny.
He's got powers.
So they start talking about old Chronicler, and giving him his his reason for being there, and Bast putting together his will or what have you. And then I thought it was kind of funny when he's like, he's leaving all his money to the widow Sage to help raise her, dowering her 3 daughters. They're soon to be marriaging age. And then Graham with little Katie certainly has grown up a bit this year, hasn't she? And the others nod in agreement.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of old dudes talking about young women. Kind of a little creepiness coming in there.
How old is she now? She's like 13, man. Fucking put on the brakes, buddy.
Well, and then Bast kind of, and Rothfuss does it a number of times here where he just kind of I feel like he's reminding the audience and almost gets a bit heavy-handed. Bast, he's like, to my employer, I leave my best pair of boots. And then, Cobb, boy, does he have a fine pair of boots. And then always thought so. And then when he's walking up the stairs later, he's like, his feet are hitting the steps. It's like loud. He talks about it. Just kind of puts it on this emphasis that, he is different. And we get more of that with, at the end. But, there's another thing that I noticed right in this point.
Yeah. A lot of this chapter is a callback to other stories we've heard or stories we're going to hear, especially when Old Cob starts fucking telling the story about Kvothe. We get a lot of callbacks to different things he's already done. But with Old Cob, fucking mixing and matching.
Yeah. Well, I was going to mention, I thought it was kind of interesting that Carter, I guess I forgot about this, but he admonishes the apprentice for bringing the bar, for like being prepared. It's like calling him foolish. I was like, damn good thing he did.
Yeah, no shit.
I mean, he pretty much saved their asses.
And it's ridiculous for Carter to be like, you look like a fool, boy.
Yeah,
it's like,
exactly.
Dude, you just got fucking almost murdered by a giant, faceless, no-mouth spider with razor legs that's the size of like a fucking cart of the wheel of a cart. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
like,
it's ridiculous.
Give me all the weapons. I want all the weapons.
Well, he even says it. He's like, I think you'd be carrying one in each hand. That thing could have killed you. So, I mean, he even calls him out. But I like that because we also do get that he's the smartest of the bunch.
Yeah.
You know, like by far. And they all kind of like treat him differently because he's, you know, from a different place and all, and he's younger and all that. But clearly he's got a head on his shoulders. And yeah, I mean, with the Skrill, what was that, like 2 days ago or a day ago?
Yeah, it was at least a few days ago. I know. Chronicler. Chronicler came in the night before, and that's when Kvothe fought the Skrill. But the Skrill that attacked Carter had to have been a few days.
Oh yeah, because that's our intro. Yeah, and Carter's the one that got all scratched up, and his horse gets, you know, massacred.
Yes, correct.
But yeah, he's all flipping about it now.
Didn't somebody else get it on their farm too? Or maybe some of their livestock got it.
Yeah, anyway. That's when he goes and gets his apron and bar to fight the Skrill. The guy's like, you know, some of the guy's sheep came back, and you know, but they were all scratched up. And guy was like, wolves? Or Kvothe asked him, he's like, wolves? He's like, yeah, what else could it be? It's like, it's not that time of year for him, but what else could it be? So, yeah, it was obviously we know it's the Skrill. We can surmise it's the Skrill, but to him, he thinks it, you know, it has to be wolves because there'd be nothing else that could have done it.
So I have to admit, I was a little confused during Cobb's stories, trying to figure out, you know, is he talking about where, you know, Kvothe throws a basalt in that guy's face in the alley? There was a lot of different things that Cobb was talking about in some of the other guys that
he's obviously mixing and matching stories, like, because it starts with, you know, Chronicler starts it off, and he's like, if I remember right, Kvothe was in Severin when it happened. He was walking home, and weren't in Severin, Old Cob said. It was off by the university. Could have been, Chronicler conceded. Anyway, he was walking home late at night, and some bandits jumped him in an alleyway. It was broad daylight, Cobb said testily, in the middle of town. All manner of folk were around to see it. Chronicler shook his head stubbornly. I remember an alley. Anyway, the bandits surprised Kvothe. They wanted his horse. He paused and rubbed his forehead with the tips of his fingers. Wait, that's not right. He wouldn't have had his horse in an alley. Maybe he was on the road to Severin. I told you it weren't Severin, Cobb demanded, slapping his hand down on the bar, plainly irritated. Telu anyway, just stop. You've got it all mixed up. And then the best is Cobb wolfs down his food and just like shoves it down his fucking throat so that he can quickly be done with his food and he can jump into the story.
Like, what the fuck, man? He so loves to hear himself talk that he has to just get the food down real fast so then he gets to tell the story. This dude is so annoying, man.
He's got to be the storyteller. It's like, seeing as you're still working on your dinner there, would you mind terribly if I picked up the stories just so the boy can hear it? You're sure you know it? Of course I know it. And then, so you get a mix and match of stories. So he says, you said before that Kvothe was so smart they paid him to stay even though he was just 10 years old. So one, they're off on the when he got there. They're saying he got there when he was 10. And they say they gave him a purse full of gold, a diamond ring as big as his thumb knuckle, and a brand new horse with a new saddle and tack and new shoes and a full bag of oats and everything. So obviously he doesn't get a big ass purse full of gold, diamond ring. It's likely talking about Denna's ring the horse is likely talking about the horse that he gets on his way to Traben, but it's mixing and matching those things.
Well, and even the gold could be from, later when he gets it from the bandits, who knows? But it's funny because then the
he got
gold
the 3
is
talents and they turned it into a bag of gold.
Well, I was going to say the gold gets turned into, he gave it to some poor folks whose houses had burned down. And like, so he does all these great things with the diamond and, all these other things, just to get him like this greater mystique where it becomes, he becomes a caricature, he becomes like the model hero, which, I mean, makes sense. That's how stories typically end up working. And he's got so many, accomplishments over time that this would be natural that it would happen like this. But especially when you have a guy like Cobb who's so ridiculously overconfident about, what he thinks is the right story. And he's going to, just run over anyone that's going to try to tell a story, that his version is going to start to travel. You know what I mean?
So it makes you wonder, after everything that Kvothe has said about embellishing stories to make himself the hero and stuff, makes you wonder how much of it Kvothe spread, how much disinformation Kvothe threw in there to throw people off his trail, so on and so forth.
Well, a lot, you see it in the second book. He starts going to bars and hearing people telling the stories, and he's hearing them telling different versions. It's not versions that he's told, like when they're talking about, and he gave out the gold to some poor folks whose houses had all burned down. They're talking about Traben, and Kvothe didn't spread that story. That spread on its own. So it became its own thing without him doing anything. The Florian stuff definitely was his, and that he's like, that one held closest to his original tale because of the song that he created with it. So that held it, it traveled better. But like the other ones that he didn't spread, they just became a bunch of different wild versions, and that's what you're seeing here, whereas Chronicler's pointing it out. Like he's like, I heard it was in Severin. He's pointing out that there's many different versions of these stories, that no one's got the actual truth. And everybody,
that would also,
and even like Grammar, one of them like brings up, no, it's not. There's multiple times where they're like, no, that's not right. It was this. No, it was this. So there's multiple versions of these stories, and I don't think it's all Kvothe or mostly Kvothe.
Well, and that would make natural sense as well, because there were witnesses at some of those events.
Yeah,
and there were people that would have heard it firsthand or secondhand or thirdhand from people that would have been closer to the truth. While with Florian, it's all Kvothe.
Yeah,
Florian ain't going around telling the story to people, about her being a basic bitch, right?
Yeah,
that's not gonna travel from her mouth.
Yeah, well, he kept that part tight to his vest.
Yeah,
he didn't let that part spread. And then you also get like he if you got to know, he gave that diamond to a special friend of his, a special lady friend, that you would think is the story with Denna's ring.
Mm-hmm.
You would think that's what story that is. And then they talk about since Kvothe couldn't find all that, afford all that rich living in the university, he stayed in a town nearby, a place called Amory. It's obviously talking about Emery. He shot Chronicler a pointed look. He's such a dick. Kvothe had a room in an inn where he got to stay there for free because the widow who owned the place took a shine to him. He did chores to help earn his keep. So obviously that's not accurate. Anchors is the place. There's no fucking widow.
Yeah.
And then he's like, now, and you've got to remember, this is back when Kvothe was just a pup. He ain't got no sword, and even if he did, he ain't learned to fight proper from the Adem yet. So that's a future one that we'll get into in book 2. And then it was in the middle of the day, and they were smack in the middle of Amory's town square. Kvothe was about to call the constable, but he always had his eyes wide open, you see, so he noticed that this fellow had white teeth. So somehow sweet eaters got brought into the story. I don't know the significance of that, but for some reason they brought sweet eaters into it. And then it was I love Bast's part. Whatever did he do? Bast burst out anxiously from the far end of the bar, wringing his hands dramatically. the innkeeper glared at his student. It's fucking great. Bast fucking playing it up. Like, what did he do?
So yeah, Bast obviously hates these guys in the town, thinks that they're morons.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say he thinks that they're morons. He's having fun, being on the inside, pretending to be on the outside. He's just being a kind of a jackass about it. It's more, I think, fucking with Kvothe than anything.
Yeah, maybe. I get that that Bast, knowing what he knows, especially after what he says to Chronicler, that he's got that he puts on airs, that he feels like he may be better than them.
Well, there's no doubt that he thinks he's better than them. I'm just saying in that situation, I don't think that's what he was doing. I think he was just fucking with Kvothe and having fun.
Yeah,
but
it's pretty hilarious too.
All right, then Kvothe, he talks about, so Kvothe uses a dark magic that he found locked away in a secret book in the university. He speaks 3 terrible secret words and calls up a demon. So we talked about, like, the dark magic might be something that he finds if he goes behind the 4-plate door, or he finds it in the university somewhere, maybe. And they talk about, like, there's information from Kalptina, and then you also have the Yillish knots, and so maybe he finds some secret information through there or behind the 4-plate door. But I'd be surprised if there's not something to that as far as the dark magic that he found locked away in a secret book in the university. And then he speaks 3 terrible secret words and calls up a demon. I think that is referencing him calling the name of the wind. So I think that's why he's talking about Kvothe was in the square in the middle of the day. All manner of people were there to see it. They saw him call a demon. So I think he's combining the fight in the alley with him calling the name of the wind is what I think that he's combining there.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. I hadn't put that together, but yeah, in the middle of the town where everybody saw that could definitely be what it was.
Plus, they talk about, like, the people who witnessed it. One of them was like, it was a demon of wind.
Yeah,
and so even one of the people mentions it's a demon. So I'm fairly certain that's what they were talking about. But then you get and no, this one weren't spidery at all. It was worse. This one was made of all shadows, and when it landed on the fellow, it bit him on the chest, right over his heart, and it drank all the blood out of him like you'd suck the juice out of a plum. I don't know what the fuck that could be.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Because I couldn't think of anything that comes close to referencing that we've seen thus far. Sounds like something pretty gnarly happens in the 3rd book, or it's just purely, people
made up
like to
from
say creepy
people talking
things.
about a demon, and just imagination ran wild. Is kind of how I took it, because most of the events that he's talking about happen within a similar time frame. Talking about that he was a young pup, so you would think these are all stories that happen, within the time frame that he's at the university before he goes to Severin. And then I like the aspect where Graham's like, that's not how I heard it. I heard there was a woman trapped in a burning house, and Kvothe called up a demon to protect him from the fire. Then he ran inside and pulled the lady out of the fire, and she wasn't burned at all. She's obviously talking about Fela. So he's even combining a different story to it. And then Jake discussed it. He's like, you're like kids at midwinter. Demons stole my doll. Demons spilled the milk. Kvothe didn't meddle with demons. He was at the university learning all manner of names, right? The fellow came at him with a knife, and he called out fire and lightning, just like Tamerlane the Great, which is the closest to the actual truth of the story. And then Old Cob's response is like, that doesn't make any sense. He's like, otherwise the story doesn't make a lick of sense. It was a demon he called up, and it drank up the fellow's blood, and everyone who saw was powerful shook up. Someone told a priest. Then the priest went to the constable, and the constable went to him and pulled him out of the widow's inn that night. Then they slapped him in jail for consorting with dark forces and such. So not only that, then he's like, corrects the closest to the accurate story. He corrects him like, you're fucking way off. And then he not only combines it with the story where he calls the name of the wind, then he makes that they brought him to the constable the next day, when in reality that happens way later. So he's got the wrong story, the wrong time frame. Everything about his story is wrong. He's got just some minor details right, and lambaste the guy that got it the closest to right.
Well, yeah, and then he throws all these little things to show how much evidence he has. And it was, I know this about it. And then everyone who saw it. And then someone told a priest, and the priest told the constable, and the constable went. And then, it's like, dude. So he's overpowering anyone else's, version, which, again, that would help spread that. It just makes me dislike Cobb so much. Because clearly, I mean, somehow or some way he got it in his head that this is the version, but we obviously know he's incorrect. But he still doesn't give a shit. He just wants to be the guy with the story, so he's just running roughshod over everyone else. It's fucking ridiculous, man.
It's hilarious. I love the aspect of the old man who's the storyteller, but he's just fucking up the stories left and right, and he's doing it in front of Kvothe.
Well, yeah, I love Jake's response. Folk probably just saw the fire and thought it was a demon. You know how folk are. It's like, exactly. That is exactly what happens. That's exactly what we see happen. And then Cobb's like, no, I don't, Jacob. And he always calls everybody by their full name. Like, what a dick. Like these pretentious guys that are like, look, Richard. Or like, it's always the full. God, I hate this guy. But and then he does.
He would be like, if the guy's name was Richard, he'd be like, listen, dick.
Yeah. Well, but then he goes. He crosses his arms in front of his chest and leans back against the bar. Why don't you tell me how folk are? Why don't you just go ahead and tell the whole damn story? What a fucking asshole! Like, I hate that. He's like a little punk, dude, and he's like the authority, but he's a little punk that if he can't tell the story, he doesn't want to hear it.
Yeah, he cracks me up. He's hilarious. And then
I know people.
I would hate him if I hung out with him, though.
Well, it's great on Roth's part because he's accomplishing so many things here by showing how stories get mangled, how a bunch of stories get combined into one, how there's confusion involved with all of it, how the legend grows in one way and won't in another. And again, this is doubling down, tripling down why Kvothe needs to tell his story to Chronicler if he already did not know that there's a reason,
Yeah, and Chronicler's basically, manipulating him again after he already got the yes. He goes back into sales mode again.
Yeah.
Like further selling him. It's like, dude, you already got the sale, man. Stop selling.
No, and it's great. And then Bast is like helping it along as well because Bast wants him to tell the story for his reasons. Yeah, it's pretty great.
Then what happened? Holy shit.
Oh my goodness. No way.
How did he ever get out of that?
Laying it down pretty thick.
Fucking awesome. But yeah, then we get to the big part of the chapter. The mercenary comes in, and he's got his armor and, heavy sword. And so everybody immediately like gets a little uncomfortable with this dude kind of walking in. Says, his hair was a greasy snarl. His eyes were dark and sunken as if he hadn't slept in days. And when he goes up to the bar, he says, I don't know how to say this. Athan say Sithstoi Sethaven Ve. Both lean forward. I'm sorry, what was that again? I don't know what any of that is. And then I love that though, Cobb again. It's Siaru. Cobb said knowingly. Funny, you don't look like a shim.
Well, you would have to assume, or at least it seems reasonable to assume, he's probably slurring as well, right? Because the guy's all, he seems to be, extraordinarily. Well, I mean, most of it he's not with it, and then he does sharpen in, but yeah, well, like, and even in the introduction, he does a great job where he's like, look, a lone mercenary is never reassuring, even in the best of time. But everybody knows the difference between an unemployed mercenary and a highwayman was mostly one of timing. And this guy, dude, he looks like shit. Like there's mud all over him, and yeah. So just coming in, it's disturbing. Just the situation in itself, and then the fact that he looks all messed up, and he slurring his words and everything. Yeah.
Yeah. As soon as
but again, Cobb with his.
Yeah. I know
Oh, I
what
know
this
exactly
is.
what he's saying. Yeah.
It's like, wrong again, buddy. You're always wrong. And then Bast, as soon as Bast hears the guy speak, he knows shit's gonna go sideways. And it's like, Bast made a frantic covert gesture where he stood by the door, but Kvothe was busy trying to catch the mercenary's eye. And then Chronicler realizes who it is. He realizes this is the guy that was leading the bandits who robbed me. And he's like, he was clean shaven then, but it's him. And, he's like, he's got my shirt. He's wearing my shirt. Ruined it too. Cost me a whole talent. Never even got to wear it.
Did you guys get the sense that maybe Kvothe knows too? There was a specific spot where prior to Bast, trying to get Kvothe's attention, Kvothe seems like he's being very matter of fact, but there's some point where it's actually right when he walks in that Kvothe, or Coat at this point, shoots Bast a look, and Bast goes and shuts the door right after the mercenary comes in. And it seemed like from there on out that possibly Kvothe was pretending to be dumb about what he was doing, about what he was asking the guy. And
I kind of got the impression that Kvothe wasn't really playing it up. I felt like he wasn't really sure what his deal was. It was kind of funny to me trying to picture Chronicler trying to motion to him. I kind of picture him on the other side of the room, like waving his arms.
But even then,
it's a serious moment. But
it's like, just a second, like he keeps putting him off. Like,
well, he doesn't notice. I think he doesn't
but
notice.
That makes me think that he doesn't know what's up because
yeah,
he's blowing off Bast and he's not treating the situation with the direness that it deserves.
Yeah, he's like getting closer to him.
He's not like telling everybody, get the fuck away from this guy, back up, something's wrong with this fucking dude. Like if Kvothe knew, you would think he would have just started warning people to get the fuck away from him. Like, and certainly when Chronicler grabs the guy's sword, you would think Kvothe would have been like, whoa, 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 whoa. He doesn't say shit. Everybody else is like, kind of chimes in, but Kvothe, at no point does Kvothe like fucking warn anybody about anything. So I don't get the impression that he knows. He might recognize, sure, he recognizes some of the words because some of them are very similar to words that we know what they are. So I'm sure he knows what some of the words are, but like what the guy's saying, who he is, I did not get the impression that he knows what the fuck's going on.
I was, however, a bit suspicious about, or I don't know if suspicious is the right word, but I feel like Chronicler should have known more because he recognizes the guy. He even challenges him. But I feel like he should have recognized, he recognizes Bast is not, is of the Fae. I feel like he should have, again, Chronicler, man, he's a mysterious fellow in the way that he seems world-wise. He seems to know a lot about a lot of the world itself and a lot of different people. He recognizes Bast of the Fae. It feels like maybe he should have noticed something else was going on here. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like this guy's on hard times now. He's wearing my freaking shirt and all that. I don't know.
Maybe, but I mean, it's like he saw through Bast's glamour, so he sees this dude's got hooven feet. I mean, he's not human. Clearly, this guy is a human. He's just
what I mean is he saw this human when he wasn't in this state.
Yeah,
and now he sees him in this state. He eventually catches on, but it's more like he directly challenges him, almost gets himself murdered.
But like the way he reacted to Bast, it gives you the impression that this guy's never seen a fake creature before because he fucking panicked and attacked Bast when Bast wasn't doing anything. So that seemed to be a complete panic state. So that doesn't give me the impression this is a guy who is comfortable being around fake creatures and would be thinking that fake creatures are walking around. It seemed like that he did not know that fake creatures were actually real fucking things, or he definitely never seen one. So it doesn't surprise me that he would see this fucking dude looking ragged and not think, oh, this is a demon now. His body's been taken over by a demon. That's not.
No,
it's
not
more.
Where
Normal people's mind goes.
I think it's more the descriptions of how he's sitting, how he's like slurring his words, how he looks unfocused. It's all of that that makes me think more of it, makes me more suspicious of it. But then it's also interesting because we talked about Chronicler, panicking when there's a noise in the bushes while he's pissing, and then this guy, he goes up, takes the sword out of his scabbard.
Yeah.
It's a pretty ballsy move, man.
Yeah.
Like, especially when he gets stuck too. He just keeps going with it.
Almost seems like his Chronicler's anger towards the guy, like this is his opportunity to get him in trouble, get his shirt back. Like, because of the injustice, Chronicler just goes in with a head full of steam and doesn't even realize the danger.
Well,
no,
dude,
it did not seem like he recognized the danger at all.
And by the way, we were talking about television show or movie. Like this scene is pretty gnarly. Like, this dude is a one scary fucking figure, man. Like the smile, the laughing, the just ripping his own hands apart and everything. Man, that would be pretty great to see, especially for anyone that's not familiar with the story. Pretty chilling.
It gets interesting real quick because like the guy, he's still like in that kind of slurred, out of it state, and then once he glides his hand over the sword and cuts himself, and he sees his blood, and it's like the mercenary drew a deep breath through his nose, and his glassy sunken eyes came into sudden sharp focus. And then he looks at him and he goes, "Tavarian Arroy Sethaloi Ve Mela," he said in a deep voice. So I think Sethaloi, it is capitalized. It's the only word capitalized, so that's either a name of a person or a name of a group. My guess is that is like Amir, like follower of Selatos. So I think that's what that is like. It's either just directly follower of Selatos, or it's a Fey word for Amir. And then he's saying that directed towards Chronicler.
Yeah.
Well,
So that gives more evidence toward more possible evidence towards Chronicler actually being a member of the Amir.
And I'll agree with you there, because there's 2 points where this creature kind of comes to, and it's when while he's looking at Chronicler, as you just mentioned, but then a little later on in this fight, he turns around and gets a hold of Kvothe and starts speaking to Kvothe directly, and kind of comes to at that point.
Yeah, correct. And then one of the other ones is it's the man's smile fell away, his eyes hardened, grew angry. To Torin Skirolate a Mowan. We've heard a Mowan, which kind of sounds, like it's like almost like Jesus Christ is what it sounds like, is when I hear it in other contexts, unless I'm thinking of the wrong thing. But Bast I believe it's Bast who's like a couple times like, "Hey, Mowan," like Jesus Christ, like fucking idiot.
I think you got it all wrong, Dan. I'm pretty sure this guy's just looking for a bathroom, and that's what he's asking everybody.
He just keeps asking people.
He hit in a direct reference to a bathroom break in Fey language.
Yeah.
Good old Patty, man. Yeah. He's a clever one.
He's like, "Oh man, I'm gonna get them so good. Like I'm been hitting around bathroom breaks, and like I'm gonna have it in this. Hey, Mowan, I have to take such a bad shit right now.
This guy's dying to take a shit, and everybody's like, "Dude, I don't know what you're saying. What are you saying?" He's like, "Dude, I got a shit. Show me where the fucking bathroom is." And then they come at him, and he's just smiling and laughing.
Man, what is it with you people? Pull a sword? I just got to take a piss.
Yeah, then the dude, like, he throws back his head and laughs. It was no human sound. It was wild and exulting, like a hawk's shrill cry. And I love the part here. This would be badass to see this, like, on camera. Mm-hmm. He's, like, still smiling. He tightened his grip, bowing the blade. Blood ran down from his hand, down to the sword's edge, and pattered onto the floor. Everyone in the room watched in stunned disbelief. The only sound was the faint grating of the mercenary's finger bones grinding against the bare edges of the blade.
That's
Looking
awesome.
Chronicler full in the face, the mercenary twisted his hand sharply, and the sword broke with a sound like a shattered bell. So, and there's a,
Man.
a ring unworn.
Yeah. Dude, that
It's
is
rung like a bell.
That's dope.
Another one of those.
That's so like such a chilling thing to have. Because all right, so they got numbers, right? So that'd be one reason why Chronicler can have some courage here, right? They got the numbers. There's a whole lot of them. This one dude, and then he does something like that, and you're just like, holy fuck, who's got a gun?
Who the fuck
who's gonna
grabs
shoot
a
this guy's
sword
head off
with his bare hand and then snaps it in half? Like, what the fuck? What do I
while
do
he's
with this
smiling
guy?
at you?
Doesn't it say that
maybe.
Old Cob like scurried underneath the table? I had to see
Yeah,
old little ass crawl away real fast.
It was right after Bast slams into him, because like after that, like he held onto that, and then Chronicler fell back and stabbed him in the arm with the sword, and the guy just doesn't even react to it, and then he lays a hand on Chronicler, and Chronicler jumps back, jerked away like he'd been jabbed with a hot poker, it said, which we find out that where he touched him, like his arm was going numb and shit, and so there's something fucked up about this creature touching guys. And then it says Bast came running up, just barreled into him, hit him into the bar, and slammed him into it. And then the guy got a hold of Bast, threw him like a rag doll into the table, and Chronicler or Bast crumples up on the ground. And then it's like, then as if Bast's action had startled everyone awake, chaos erupted in the room. Old Cob pushed himself away from the bar, tipping his stool over as he backed away. Graham began shouting something about the constable. I love that. Police! Police! But fucking Jake tried to bolt for the door and tripped over Cobb's fallen stool, which is fucking classic, sprawling to the floor in a tangle. The smith's apprentice grabbed for his iron rod and ended up knocking it to the floor, where it rolled in a wide arc and came to rest under the table. Bast gave a startled yelp and was thrown violently across the room to land on one of the heavy timber tables. It was broke under his weight, and he lay sprawled in the wreckage, limp as a rag doll. That shit's great. Like, you see just the Cobb fucking sheer panic, backs up, knocks over his bar stool. One guy starts screaming for the cops, and then the other guy goes to take off to run out the door to get someone, fucking trips over the chair that fucking Cobb knocked over, and then Aaron goes to grab his iron rod, knocks it down to the ground, and it fucking rolls in an arc away from him. It's just like a giant, everybody tried to jump into action, and all of them fucking just like sheer panic and fuck up and falling all over each other.
And at the beginning, the one thing you didn't mention is Bast does take the guy's head and slams it a couple times into the bar. Yeah. And that's when everybody else tries to jump to action. It's all just horrible attempts on everybody's part. Just doesn't work out, except for Shep, and that doesn't end up working out too well.
Yeah, then, as they're fighting, is like finally the mercenary's gaze came to rest on the red-haired man behind the bar. Kvothe did not blanch or back away when the man's attention settled onto him. Their eyes met, the mercenary's eyes sharpened again, focusing on Kvothe. The wide, humorless smile reappeared, made macabre by the blood running down his face. To Athan Sethaloi, he demanded. Te Renta? So he asked him something. Are you a member of Celatos's crew? Are you a mirror? Or are you Renta, which is likely, are you Chandrian? Because the lady with the Adem, Cheyenne, when she tells the story of the Chandrian, she calls them Renta. And so, the way it's spelled when she says it is Rhinta. This is Rhintae. So I'm guessing this is the plural. She said Chandrian, and it's like, this is like the plural of it. But it could be the plural of it, or it's just a different spelling. That was the Adem version of the word. This is the Fae version of the word.
Maybe this is the ultimate question, right, of the book.
Yeah,
Is
are
Kvothe
you with
Chandrian or Amir?
the Amir or
Yeah.
are you with the Chandrian? But
Pick a
he
side,
clearly
bro.
recognized him as being different, being very powerful. Like that seems to be the recognition that he asked him, "Are you with one group or are you with another?" I'm fairly confident that that's what he's asking him. I think that makes the most sense, is that he's asked if he was asking him because of the renta. That makes me think the Sethaloi is Celatos, and so I'm thinking he's asking him, "Are you with Celatos or are you with Haliax?" Basically,
So actually lends a lot of power to this creature, right? It makes me question who's who's controlling this dude. It almost feels like it's I don't know. I don't really know, but
I think Ajax is likely.
yeah.
I think he's
Well, it
one of
gets-
Ajax's tools.
Not to jump ahead, but when Bast starts explaining or talking about the male later, or maybe I'm saying that wrong, Mael, I think, male, about where this thing came from. I don't remember ever reading about that place again or hearing about it other than that.
No, we don't.
What did he
But-
say when he was introduced? When Bass was introduced by Kvothe, didn't he say he was the Prince of Twilight, the something of the seventh?
Tell with male.
Yeah, male. The male was in there again. So it seems to be of the Fae of some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, but
Well, he
he's
says
like
that
when
world.
he describes, he's like that group is couldn't be any further away from us. They're as far
that's
as
Kvothe.
Yeah, no,
as
yeah,
you
it
can possibly be.
Yeah, it sounded like in terms of either like a location, like in terms of like they're on the other side of the world or something.
Yeah.
Like it's like Americans versus Chinese or something, like on opposite spectrums of their world, which we know is, or at least we feel like the way that their world put together is different. But clearly, Bass is at least distancing himself from this thing.
Yeah. So and one of the other things too is there's use of the word Renata, and on the phrase that's on the library, the archives, it's like Vorfelin Renata Mori, and Willem says that means the desire for knowledge shapes a man. So Renata is likely shapes, shaper, shaping, something along shaping. So
So
he could have also asked him, are you a shaper?
Hmm.
That is another possibility for what he asked, rather than the are you with the Chandrian? But I think it's likely that he's saying Chandrian and the Amir or Celatos' group.
That's very well, too bad he's coat, right? Because that would have been a great moment to light this motherfucker on fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been a happy ending.
Yeah, it would have felt really climactic. And now Coat would have really shown himself, right? Shown his ass to all these guys, and now they know he's somebody else. He's capable of things that he shouldn't be capable of.
Well,
So luckily he
didn't
still has his
necessarily
identity
if
here.
If he could have lit the guy on fire, he didn't necessarily see. Because like I said, I went through this chapter kind of thinking that Kvothe might have known what he was, what this thing is, and so I got to thinking about just what you said. If he'd have shown his ass, and I thought, well, if he could have done it amidst the chaos, which he was trying to, I don't know that anybody else would have seen Kvothe do anything else, other than light the thing on fire. Not, if he had succeeded in using Sigildry to do it.
I think he's the type of guy that he would have given up his secrets to save everybody at the bar. I mean, he specifically tells Aaron in the next book that he is Kvothe just to try to get him to not join the army.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I'm
and
fairly
Aaron-
certain he would try to save all their lives.
Well, and Aaron brings it up here that he was going to light him on fire. He doesn't know he can use sympathy. He thought he was looking for a match or something. But
Yeah.
So he catches on to that. There is a bit of a, it gets pretty dark here with Kvothe, so he doesn't successfully, or he's unsuccessful at trying to light the dude on fire. And then when the mercenary catches hold of him, he just stands there. Like his expression held no fear, no anger or surprise. He only seemed weary, numb, and dismayed. It's like he's just like, bring it on. I'm ready to die type of feeling. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. It kind of reads like that to me, where he's just like
flower feeling, Tim. A cut flower feeling.
Perhaps.
And he's lost the ability to use his sympathy, and so
it's probably pretty depressing.
Like, yeah, in that scenario
Bit
where when everybody's life's on the line and there's not really much he can do about it, even though, at one point in his life he would have been able to fucking be the hero in that situation, and now he can't, and he doesn't know what to do about it. Yeah, and then fucking Bast comes up, man. Bast's a great wingman. Fucking comes up and tackles him from behind, gets one arm, around the mercenary's neck while the other raked the man's face. And then Bast sees Aaron, goes and picks up the iron rod and starts charging in, big ass Aaron. Fucking Bast immediately like, let's go, the guy, and just starts backing the fuck up like, oh shit. Fucking iron fucking dudes coming in here.
I really want to see Bast attack, man. It's vicious, man. His first and second attack on this guy, the second one with his hands raking at his face and trying to like rip his eyes out and shit.
Yeah, it reminds me of like those brutal girl fights where they're like grabbing each other's hair and fucking scratching each other,
like whatever it
shit.
takes.
And it's like, it's like Jesus.
It's definitely a George Costanza
like fucking
fight
cats
moment.
fighting.
Yeah,
smashing the other girl's face in the mahogany bar. I've seen it 100 times.
And clawing the eye 100 times, clawing the eyes and everything else. Yeah, man. Aaron coming in is great, man. Just wielding that iron rod.
Yeah, unceasingly.
I like that
nice.
It was like turning. The mercenary saw the tall boy charging. He smiled and stretched out a bloody hand. The motion was graceful, almost lazy. I always describe the Fae or like the, a Loden, Cinder.
Yeah.
Always having these like graceful motions.
Yeah, it almost seems like it's, and it's almost like you said, it's almost lazy, almost like it's like perfect motion. It feels like, it's like no wasted part of it. That's what grace looks like. There's no wasted motion. It's absolute like precision.
Yeah, and then you get the smith's apprentice grabbed the bar with both hands and brought it down across the mercenary's back like a man splitting wood. There was a grisly sound of bones cracking. The iron bar rang softly like a distant fog-muffled bell. And another one of those, a ring not for wearing.
Mm.
And then I'm curious what this part was all about, because it was like back broken, the bloody man still tried to crawl towards the inn's door. His face was blank now, his mouth open in a low howl as constant and unthinking as the sound of wind through winter trees. The apprentice struck again and again, swinging the heavy iron rod lightly as a willow switch. He scored a deep groove in the wooden floor, then broke a leg, an arm, more ribs. Still the mercenary continued to claw his way towards the door, shrieking and moaning, sounding more animal than human. Finally, the boy landed a blow to the head, and the mercenary went limp. There was a moment of perfect quiet. Then the mercenary made a deep, wet, coughing sound and vomited up a foul fluid, thick as pitch and black as ink. So I'm curious, because he was going for the door instead of jumping from body to body. So maybe there is something up in the end that, like, once he was in there, that could be partially why he was so out of it when he was in the bar. And, he's slurring his words, not focused, kind of just, out of it. Maybe there's something when you're in that bar that fucks up magic.
Yeah, it feels like it. It's also, I thought about that quite a bit as well, where it's, it is the middle of noir. It's almost like, I feel like there's something with like the Waystones. It's almost like, it may not just be the bar itself. It might be just the bar, but it might also be this area here that they're in, where it's just like things are muted. You don't have and it's like a cloaking device in itself that he can be hidden. I don't know, man. I don't know.
It would make sense though, specifically the bar, because it's like you hear the guy walking up, and then when he opens the door, he stops and looks in like dazed, like he was on his way in, and he stops as soon as he opens the door, tries to go in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just seems like there might be something up with the bar, because why is he trying to crawl out of there? I mean, you could just think he's just trying to get away. It could be that, but it also could be that he needed to get out of there because he's trying to jump out of this body and he can't.
Well, and then it also, obviously, when Kvothe leaves to fight the Skrael, right, and that he's not there because he even makes a point of talking about that with Bast, where it's like, I chose where I fought them, So there's that. Yeah, there's a lot that goes to that,
because like the skin dancer, when he's like grabbing the sword with the bare hand and breaking it, getting stabbed in the neck and all that. It kept smiling. It was just like, laughing at the idea of like, you can't fucking hurt me. This isn't my body. There was no like fear, but clearly it died. So it should have had worry. And I don't think it really clicked that it was in danger until it got his, back broke and probably like tried to jump into someone else's body maybe and wasn't able to. And then it tried to crawl out of there. That could be what happened, and we just we're not in that skin dancer's head, so we just don't know exactly what it was doing. But I would be surprised if it didn't even attempt to crawl, go into someone else's body, and if it couldn't go into someone else's body, why?
Yeah, and without saying why, Rothfuss explains through Kvothe and Bast at the end of this chapter that Bast is saying, well, he looked just like a skinwalker. And or a skin dancer, excuse me. He looked just like a skin dancer, and then I think Kvothe says back to him, but he wasn't trying to jump bodies. So
it was Bast. Yeah, it didn't seem like Kvothe. The only thing he really remarks on is we'll come across it here in a second, but he just is like, I thought you said they've been gone for thousands of years, but yeah, Bast's the one that gives all the information on it. But yeah, then. All the scene fucking calms down and everybody comes in. The rumors start. Someone thinks that this was an acquaintance of the innkeeper come to collect a debt. He was an ex-soldier gone tabard mad while fighting the rebels off in Reread. That chronicler who deflowered his sister off in Abbott's Ford, and he was looking for revenge. So there's a bunch of theories, and then eventually they settle on the theory he was a sweet eater. That he had just, had the hunger on him and went crazy.
Yeah, it's funny. They kind of make it into a Say No to Drugs campaign.
Yeah. Fucking drugs, man. Those fucking druggies.
See what drugs can do to you, kids? Don't be like him.
It makes sense that people would draw that conclusion, except the guys in the bar, has no one told these stories about the spider? Are they not talking about, hey, this guy came in and then before he got killed, he threw up some black tar and shit like that? Like,
Well, I think
who wants to believe that demons are coming after your town?
I was going to say, part of it's got to be.
It'd be easy to excuse it away in your mind and come up with some rationale that doesn't say, this is the second time demons have showed up in our town in a week.
Well, but
you want to make it more.
Everybody kind of believes that it is a demon, like the other, podunk towns that Kvothe's been through, where everyone thinks everything's a demon. I would think that they jump right to that conclusion.
But then, what's the reaction? They're just going to bail. Everybody's going to leave town because they can't. There's nothing they can do, right? Other than burying the body, and burning, burning the right types of wood. Then they're all fucked. I mean.
And
I think it's self-defense.
Or in Traben,
emotionally.
like in Traben, it's a giant fucking dragon rolling through. So of course you can't be like, well, that was just like a human that fucking was real fat.
Up. Yeah,
he got real fat. He just ate too much and got hooked on dinner. So there's no way you course you're going to go with demon there. But if it's a dude and, wearing armor, he's a deserted soldier. Yeah, you could easily see why they wouldn't be like, no, that's a fucking demon. They did think the Skrael was a demon. And then the rest of the town that did not see it, they just were like, oh, well, who can fucking trust these guys?
You're going to believe all these guys in the bar
drunks.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
they didn't see it, so they don't think it was a demon. But then, no one's, other than the people in the bar, no one sees the fight. And so they're just obviously like, oh, okay, well, yeah, it had to be just a guy on drugs.
I like this because they just come up with these stories that make sense in their world. Like, yeah, Chronicler deflowered the sister off in Abbott's Ford. It's like, this is nowhere close to any reality whatsoever.
Yeah.
But they're just like, yeah, that's what happened. Because I've heard about that. Yeah, there's women. This happens all the time. So that's what he did. That guy that I don't know anything about. It's like, what the fuck? But, yeah. I was wondering, you guys have any ideas on how Three Finger Tom got his nickname?
It's the length of his Peter.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Three fingers sideways or in unison?
Yeah, that's the girth. It's the girth.
I was more
thinking very girthy.
I was more thinking he's known that people put three fingers in him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's his move.
He's like a bowling ball.
He's known.
He's the original shocker.
He's known as the original shocker, but they just call him Three Finger.
A little wink, wink, and a nudge there by Rothfuss again.
We do get through him. We do get interesting explanation of the power of the dinner resin. How with 4 grains, a man can have his foot amputated without a twinge of pain. 8 grains, he'd saw through the bone himself. With 12 grains, he'd go for a jog afterward, laughing and singing Tinker Tanner. Now, we don't know how much a grain is, but it sounds pretty small. So it sounds like Dinah, if she ate that whole hockey puck, she could have been, or that whole bite of the hockey puck, she could have been way off into La La Land over there, whatever.
Yeah, she would have been fucked up. She got fucked up just on the little bit she ate.
Yeah.
But yeah, then, once everybody dips out, I like the part where he's like, well, boy, I guess Aaron, the Smith apprentice interjected, not looking up from his drink. My name's Aaron. Kvothe nodded seriously. Aaron, then. I suppose you deserve that. I don't think it was dinner, Aaron said abruptly, but I like that aspect where it was like, yeah, I'm done being called boy.
Yeah.
We're done with that.
Good. Yeah, I like that as well. I like Aaron a lot, man. Especially right here. Yeah, he becomes like I feel like he's kind of come back. I don't know, man. Every now and then, it's probably never going to play out like this, but I have like the team that's going to be together. It's like Elodin, Kvothe, Denna, and Fela, and they're all going to be together. And then you're going to have Aaron sitting there with the rod on his back, like doing his best Grey Dalsenti impression, ready to take on the Chandrian.
Yeah, it's all gonna turn into the first Lord of the Rings book, a Fellowship of the Ring or whatever.
Yeah, Aaron's gonna get a duster. He's gonna be ready to go to battle.
They all have dusters except for Kvothe's just rocking his nerdy ass cloak. But yeah, Aaron, he's very observant. He picked it up pretty quickly. He's like, I know you got a big oak drunk thumper. I love the description called a big oak drunk thumper. And then for like, so basically like, it sounds like a baseball bat or something. And then he's like, and looked at the sword on the wall. He's like, there's only one reason I can think of you grab a bottle instead of that. You weren't trying to knock that fellow's teeth in. You were gonna light him on fire, except you didn't have any matches and there weren't any candles close by. It's like, the more I think, the better it makes sense. Iron and fire, that's for demons. Sweet eaters are stronger than you think, Bast said across from the room. Once I saw you're right, Kvothe said. It was a demon.
Yeah, he doesn't even care anymore. Go ahead and let him in on the secret. He's the one who killed him.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that he basically levels with Aaron, and I mean, no big surprise. I mean, it's a surprise when we read it in book 2, but no big surprise he takes it further and tries to tell him the whole truth. I mean, it is actually still a surprise because he's in hiding, but he still goes into it. So yeah, it's kind of a cool. Yeah, I like that.
And I like too where when he leaves, Kvothe's like, there's more to that one than I would have guessed. And Bast's like, it's because he's big. You people are easily confused by the look of things.
Yeah.
I've had my eye on him for a while now. He's cleverer than folk give him credit for. And then, talks about the fucking iron. He's like, boy reeks of iron. Spends all day handling, baking it, breathing its smoke. Then comes in here with clever eyes. Bast gave a profoundly disapproving look. It's not natural.
It's like, Bast criticizes everybody else for not seeing that this guy's smart. When in actuality, Bast is just terrified of the guy because he smells like iron.
Yeah. Yeah, then they go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's one of those true to life moments, right?
Yeah.
People see a big dude and they're like, yeah, he's an idiot. It's just the assumption that's typical.
And Bast would be the one to think that because he's, walking around in cloven hooves and no one sees it.
I did want to mention, we get a little part here about the iron law. It was clear to everyone that the Smith's apprentice had done the right thing, a brave thing, in fact. Still, the iron law demanded a trial, so there'd be one next month when the quarter court came through these parts on its rounds. So it's kind of interesting. They have like a traveling judicial system.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool to get that little piece to build out the world a little bit.
I wonder if there's any, if that's a nod to any historical reference, because it sounds like, in small towns and in developing towns that could have been the way things were actually done at some point.
Well, frontier law, right? I mean, that used to be one of the big things in like Deadwood. It's one of the big themes. It's so great about the show is like we handle our own shit. But of course, the reason why they want to handle their own shit is Swearingen gets to call the shots. You know what I'm saying? So like, they don't want government coming in because it's their, it's their thing. It's their show to run. It's their game. And then as government comes in, it's, it becomes all politicized, in which case they lose control, which there's a lot of history in that, in terms of that like frontier law. But yeah, it's interesting because there's that higher power that they have to then answer to when they don't have the authority or they don't know how to suss out whatever they're dealing with.
So that was post-Civil War, if I'm not wrong. Would that have been like the original federal government at that point?
Yeah, it was around the time. Wasn't it around the time that? Yeah, because it was the railroad was spreading across the country. So that's what made that capability of they kind of use as far as I've seen through a lot of different shows over time, they kind of use that the railroad as that transportation system that also brought government, brought the law, brought the judicial system, brought all that way to hold people more accountable, and then spread their own influence. There's a lot of money in that shit, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I found it interesting too. Had not realized that was an actual thing, but
of course, well, my whole reply there was all based on the United States. I don't have a lot of knowledge about how Europe dealt with this stuff. I don't know. I'm just drawing off what I have any experience with or any semblance of understanding with. Dan, you know anything about frontier law and clans and whatever they do, the oak thumpers of the judicial system and the Scottish rights?
I would. I mean,
it sounds. It would be real like super thrilling and entertaining to talk about like the judicial systems of previous eras, but moving into the story though. Is like he's like I recognize the sound more than anything, Reshi. Its phrasing was very old, archaic. I couldn't make heads or tails of it. And then Kvothe is like when he asks him like, okay, Chronicler's like, what was he looking for? Kvothe's like, me probably. And Bast is like, Reshi, you're just being maudlin. This isn't your fault. Kvothe gave his student a long, weary look. You know better than that, Bast. All of this is my fault. The Scrael, the war, all my fault. Bast looked like he wanted to protest, but he couldn't find the words. After a long moment, he looked away, beaten. So that's your clearest indication that
Yeah.
it is his fault. Like, it's because it wasn't like Bast had a quick reply to it. Bast didn't even know how to come back at that because it is his fucking fault. And Bast knows it.
Yeah.
But yeah, he says that he was, seemed like one of the Mahale Uret, Rashi, a skin dancer. And then he's like, the male doesn't even share a border with us. It's as far away as anywhere can be in the Fae. Kvothe nodded a hint of apology. I just assumed you knew what it was. You didn't hesitate to attack it. All snakes bite, Reshi. I didn't need to know. I didn't need their names to know they're dangerous. I recognized it as being from the male. That was enough. So probably a skin dancer, Kvothe mused. Didn't you tell me they'd been gone for ages and ages? Bast nodded. And it seemed sort of dumb. And it didn't try to escape into a new body, Bast shrugged. Plus, we're all still alive. That seems to indicate it's something else. So that's all pretty fucking interesting. Like, it could be that this is a new creation. Maybe Iax created something new, but maybe his powers aren't as great or something along those lines.
I think it's. I would go with the second part of that, because if you're going to create something new, you would think it'd be an improvement on a, earlier model. This seems like a devolution rather than evolution. So, yeah, I think it does have something to do with the Waystone Inn. I think there's something there, man. There's some sort of cloaking power that mutes Kavothe's abilities. It's not just that he's freaking depressed. It's that hiding and that muting of his powers, and Bast talks about it, it's taking its effect, man. Like, it's literally dragging him down. The fact that he can't do what he could do. Yeah, the stories help, and that's what Bast is so encouraged by. But playing the role, and that's such a great thing, and we'll get to it. But the idea of playing the role, and now he's becoming what he was playing, and it's fucking depressing as shit to see him go through it. But yeah, we'll get there. But no, yeah. So when Fitz was talking about, sorry, I was just going to say, Chronicler's like, wait, neither of you know what this is or what it was? You told the boy it was a demon. For the boy, it's a demon, because that's the easiest thing for him to understand. It's closest to the truth. That's what we were talking about earlier. For everyone else in town, it's a sweet eater, because that will let them get some sleep tonight. So yeah, I mean, that's what it comes down to, is what can they deal with? What is it that they can actually wrap their minds around and still live their life? Like, it's just like giving that girl an amulet, even though it didn't mean anything. It wasn't an amulet. It was just something he, did some, theater about. But it helps. It helps her, so.
Yeah. I just wanted to bring it up again because it seems important. This male that they are talking about. Is there any other clue, Dan, that I haven't picked up on, maybe in book 2 or something, or is this the only spot that we even hear about it?
No, that's what I said before. No, we haven't. There's no other mention of it, other the tale with male or whatever it was called. But no, I mean, there's no. I've never heard anything else of it, and I don't have any theories to the importance of it. There's literally just hearing the male tells me nothing.
Well, I just wanted to bring it up again because the only everyone in this world at least knows about the Fae, which is this hidden magical place that some people think does, some people doesn't think exists, but they've all at least heard about it. It's not an unknown place. Well, here all of a sudden we're hearing about this place that we've never even heard of, and it sounds like in the way that Kvothe says, everything is not a demon, that there's really not any such thing as demons, that maybe all these things that people think are demons or, are actually things that come from a natural place in their world, actually.
Well, yeah, that's definitely the case. I mean, that's what even Bast mentioned. He's like, there are no demons. There's only my kind. Says that at the very end of the book. And, but the knowledge of the Fae is very limited. I mean, like, Chronicler and, had no idea about the Kvothe. Even Kvothe, who's met the Kvothe, did not realize how dangerous the Kvothe is, or the perception of the Kvothe from the other people in the Fae. And Bast brings up the fact that Kvothe knows things about the Fae that nobody knows. He's like, he knows about this, he knows about that, and he's like, so it seems like any knowledge of the Fae is very superficial. It's not like people are going, visiting the Fae and examining everything and then coming back out and telling stories about it. There doesn't appear to be any of that going on.
Yeah, it seems like when they talk about fairy stories, they're just that. They're not anywhere close to the truth. It seems. That seems to be what's around it when they say that. But
yeah, the only surprising part was that we've not heard about it. That no one has heard of it. I mean, at least they've heard of the Fae. There may not be a lot of information being passed about the Fae, but they've at least heard of it. And it seems like no one has heard of the male, and no one's talked about it, at least to our.
Yeah, but I mean, you're think about it like you're just talking about like a geographical location versus the person who's described as there's no one more dangerous in the entire world than the Kvothe. The Kvothe is the one that started the creation war. The Kvothe is the one that's, talked to Haliax before Haliax created the Chandrian. He started another war. Like the Kvothe is like an ultimate fucking bad guy who's been around for thousands of years, poisoning the hearts of men for thousands of years. And no one knows about him. So certainly it would be, if no one's heard of him, then just a geographical location inside the Fae, that does not surprise me that they don't know it.
I'm curious.
It would be weird if they knew that and didn't know the Kvothe.
I would be curious to, like, how many books in the archive talk about the Fae. You know what I'm saying? Like, how much knowledge is out there that's down, or is it all verbal? You know what I mean?
He's looking for this kind of information, and he's reading books. They're seeing stuff about the Fae. If there was a lot of information on the Fae, the Kvothe would be well known.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how do you not know, like, the most dangerous fucking thing in the Fae that has been integral in some of the biggest events in this world, and no one fucking knows about him. So there clearly is not much information about the Fae in the world.
Yeah, and along that point, when Kvothe first goes into the archives and asks for stories about the Chandrian and anything having to do with them, he gets a bunch of kid stories and bullshit. There is no, it might be what Dan was talking about, how maybe the Adem or the Chandrian or anybody for that matter is hiding this information.
Yeah, that could be it as well. But it does not seem like there's information. There's stories about Felurian, but that's about it.
It seems like they would be hiding it because it seems like you're going to go through the Fae, or there's a connection to what the Fae represents to be able to get to, behind the doors, like we were talking about. So
yeah, and Loden's the only one that recognizes Kvothe's shade, so he's seems to be one of the only people that we come across in the books that has any knowledge of the Fae outside of Kvothe. Seems like, I mean, Chronicler had such limited knowledge that the first time he sees a Fae creature, he fucking spazzes out and starts immediately attacking it. For no fucking reason. Like, I mean, had he known anything, he would have known, like, not only was it was stupid, because the thing, Bast could easily kill him, but it was just completely unnecessary. So, I mean, the knowledge has to be just super limited.
Yeah.
But, yeah, then you get, with his Chronicler mentions that his arm, it feels like it's like ice. And then so Bast goes and starts helping him, and he's like, the boy was right about the fire, wasn't he? Until he mentioned it, and I didn't. Ah! Scribe shouted, jerking away from Bast. What in God's name was that? He demanded. Your brachial nerve plexus, I'm guessing, Kvothe said dryly. And then Bast, tells him, hey, don't fucking ask him about that. Don't mention it at all. What are you talking about? About the bottle? About the sympathy he tried to do? So was he trying to light that thing on fire? Why didn't it work? Bast tightened his grip, his thumb digging into the hollow beneath Chronicler's collarbone. Scribe gave another startled yelp. Don't talk about that, Bast hissed in his ear. Don't ask questions. And so that's your first, realization that, okay, so something is really fucking up with Kvothe that, he doesn't have access to his power. And then you feel here there's also something about his music. Don't ask him, later you find out, don't ask him about that. But that's your first real indication that, man, something's really fucking different about Kvothe. I mean, you obviously got the subtle hints that something's different, but this is the first expressly worded sentence where it's like, yeah, something's up.
Yeah.
But
yeah, not only that, Bast is doing everything that he can to. Well, we already kind of knew that because he threatened Chronicler before, but now he's physically putting the press on him. Yeah,
and then so he goes back into his story, and he's like, underneath the university, I found what I had wanted most, yet it was not what I expected. He motioned for Chronicler to pick up his pen. As is often the case when you gain your heart's desire. I think that's interesting because it talks about, like, Chronicler in his head says, this is the man who tricked a demon to get his heart's desire. This is a man, and had to fight an angel to keep it. This is the face of a man who's killed an angel. So when he talks about this is a man who had to trick a demon to get his heart's desire, it sounds like this is, that story happens. Because he's mentioning it there. It's often the case when you get your heart's desire. So he gets his heart's desire from the demon, and then it's not what he expects. I don't know what it is, though.
I was going to say it's a very clever way to state it, because you could fill that in with a number of things. Because his heart's desire is revenge. His heart's desire is Denna. His heart's desire. I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot that
access. To the doors of stone, access behind the 4-plate door. Could be a lot of things.
Cloaks with a lot of pockets.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, that's most likely.
Yeah. Get a fancy multi-pocketed cloak. That's a big desire. And some dork angel. It's like, man, I would rather have that than Kvothe have it. And so he comes and fights Kvothe for it. Kvothe has to kill him, keep his cloak.
Damn.
It's a big nerd off.
It's going to be a good third book, I can tell from that story.
Yeah. Yeah. Fucking nerds. But yeah, that's it I got on that chapter.
Yeah, me too.
All right, then. Chapter 89 is called A Pleasant Afternoon. Kvothe is whipped again in front of a large crowd. Goes and gets stitched up afterward, buys a loot, pays off Devi, and gets Arya a dress. Guys?
Yeah, I like it starts off, obviously it's super short. He gets whipped is the whole aspect of it, but it's in the House of the Wind, which, he says, I found it oddly appropriate, which is, what I thought as well, with the fact that he called the name of the wind to fuck up Ambrose, and then he gets whipped in the House of the Wind.
Not even oddly appropriate. It's totally appropriate. But yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, he's got this massive crowd watching, and yet again, he just utilizes his whipping to further his reputation. So he gives him a repeat, takes some more null root, fucking gets his 6 lashes this time. Doesn't go into the great detail like he did with the last one, where he's talking about his back splitting and shit like that, where you can just feel it. He just matter-of-factly states that he got whipped 6 times and fucking didn't bleed and just fucking wiped up, or didn't cry out, didn't faint, and just walked off. And got 57 stitches across his back.
Sounds like a lot.
He goes to Imre and gets a extraordinarily fine loot, 2 nice sets of used clothing for me, small bottle of my own blood, and a warm new dress for Ari. It was, all in all, a very pleasant afternoon.
Well, and
was I think, right in thinking that the small bottle of blood was him getting his blood back?
Yeah.
Either that or he's. Oh yeah, it is his blood. He's going somewhere to go have somebody bottle up his blood for him. It is important, I think, to notice that he spent Ambrose's money on these things.
Yes.
Which makes it an ever more pleasant afternoon. But so he's even, Is he even with Devi, or does he still have like the minimum?
No, he's that's why he got his
So
blood
it's
back.
completely. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to make sure because I thought that was the
He has to
stipulation.
go back and borrow money from her again, when
Yeah,
he
I
gets his
wouldn't.
next tuition, but he had settled his debt at that point. Because when he
Yeah.
goes back, then Devi also raises the minimum on him.
Yeah. Yeah, their relationship is so interesting, and it would have been very disappointing to have her done here because
Yeah.
of what does come out. But yeah, it's a cool little chapter. It reminded me of the Chronicler chapter, Pleasant Afternoon, because he gets all his stuff stolen from him, and it's like, oh, it was okay though, it wasn't bad.
Yeah.
And similar here, he gets whipped 6 times. But yeah, it's interesting. I mean, that could be written in a so different way where it's like, yeah, man, they just keep whipping him. And like when Denna brings it up, it's like, wait, they whip you and you're just okay with that? And like the way that we see Kvothe, it's like it's no big deal. He's like, yeah, whatever. It's part of my program, man. I test the limits and this is what happens.
Yeah, it
And
seems barbaric to me.
But truly, he fucks with Ambrose. I mean, if he left well enough alone in so many ways, this wouldn't be happening to him. It's all from Ambrose, right? He takes the candle in the fucking thing. I mean, it's basically all stemming from interactions.
Well, the
he had
first
with him.
time was from him, but
Oh yeah, with him, yeah. Well, it's fucking with authority basically. But yeah, man, it's too good. That's just it's tremendous.
Yeah, I don't think I'd go to a school where they whipped you for getting your name on the board.
Well, I mean, if in terms of what he's capable of, I mean, well, okay, but he does get some really great lessons from the Adem. Wait, from the Adem. Yes.
Yeah.
I always mix that up with the Amir. But yeah, I mean, it seems to be worthwhile for his what he gets out of this, what he gets out of his relationship with the university. Plus, he doesn't have a lot of other options, does he?
No, yeah, and you play by the rules. He's willing to do it. He's got his goals in mind. I'm just saying, from my standpoint, from my point of view, I think I'd hit a different library up.
That's a little brutal.
That's it for that little short chapter.
Okay, so chapter 90 is called Half-Built Houses. In this chapter, Ari gives Kvothe a complete tour of the Underthing, and in doing so, Kvothe finds a secret way into the archives. Kvothe visits naked Fela and has her meet him there the following day. Fela explains the complexities of the organization of the archives and the history thereof.
I like that when she describes the names, he's like, the names she gave them, nonsensical at first, fit like a glove when I finally saw what they described. I like that aspect of Ari. Like, it seems like the things she does, there's no real rhyme or reason to them, or like she's given these things nonsensical names. But once you understand the method to her madness, it all fits. It all makes sense. She's not crazy. She's different. She's strange, but she's not crazy, and she seems to be very powerful as well.
It's
she
cool.
Seems to have that naming power.
It's cool that Rothfuss takes us on that trip, just like Kvothe. Like gradually over time, he starts to realize, oh wait, there's actually something to this, and we get the real taste of her ability to name here. I mean, she's naming these things, and they end up being wholly accurate, and really sort of encapsulating what they are and what they represent. So yeah, she's such an interesting character, and yeah, it evolves over time. I mean, we have to get pretty far in here. We're like 700 pages in to where we're finally getting to realize that she's, she really has some real, I guess, power.
Yeah, I mean, certainly she seems to be much bigger and more powerful and knowledgeable than you would see on the surface. It's only, when you read her book and you kind of look at what she's giving Kvothe and her reasonings and all those kind of things, then you kind of come to the conclusion that there's something more going on. But yeah, then he smells the dust and leather on the wind, And I like the aspect where he's like, why does it have that name? Isn't everything here below? She turned to look at me, head cocked to one side. Her hair blew around her face as she brushed it back with her hands. It's not below, she said. It's belows. I couldn't hear the distinction. Blows? I asked, puffing out my cheeks as if blowing out air. Ari laughed, delighted. That's a piece, she grinned. Try for more. And then, he gives his next guess. She's like, it's not as good. And she reaches out a small hand and took hold of the edge of his his nerdy cloak, pulling it out to the side so the slow wind caught it, filling it like a sail. Ari looked up at me, grinning as if she'd done a magic trick. Billows, of course, I grinned back, laughing. I love, this is part of the reason I like Ari and Elodin so much is they are so fucking quirky, but they're not stupid, and there's not something wrong with them, like in a mental capacity sense. It's just they're unique. They're different, but they're not dumb.
It's almost like another true to life scenario where people say that there's a thin line between genius and insanity. You know what I'm talking about? Have you met? Somebody who's got
eccentrics.
An eccentric or somebody who's like just really brilliant. You look at Elon Musk is a good example. If you hear him talk, you would think that. It's just his. It's not even social ineptness. It's he's so far above people mentally that he has to come down a level to converse with him, I think. And that's where the difficulty comes in. But also, you hear about people who are very extremely intelligent having compulsive syndromes and things like that.
Yeah, one of the hardest things for me is
Jesus Christ.
Doing something like this, a podcast like this, where I have to communicate with you guys and, the audience and make everything understandable. And it's something I take a lot of pride in and I'm very humble about is my ability to go down to those levels and yet still, not come off as eccentric and crazy, just seem like an everyday person. That's one of my proudest accomplishments. Well, is to seem like an everyman, but
I think you might be even more brilliant than you think, Dan, because you're not coming down to our level. You're not reaching us at all.
That's probably just my humility, showing right there.
Must be.
I think part of the reason why Dan likes Elodin and Ari is, he doesn't really fit in with the world. People think Dan's weird, and it's because he is socially. He's quite inept.
I'm not weird. I'm just real intelligent.
Oh yeah, I said it in the last episode where he's a cyborg and he's downloaded the newest software, the newest operating system, and he's just trying to interact with all the bathing apes that walk around in this world.
Yeah, it's difficult. You guys couldn't do it.
Yeah. So, as we get to the Kvothe's search for his entrance here, he basically puts. I like where he puts Ari in the rescuer or the hero role, where it's like, well, what if you're not back? It's like, well, you're gonna have to come and rescue me. It's pretty great where it's like, because they kind of play that back and forth where they're each other's sort of. I don't know, confidant or whatever. Yeah, or guardian. Yeah. And they both see it in that way. He sees it that way. She sees it that way. And that this is a good moment for the two of them to sort of depend on one another.
Yeah. And I like they talk about when he's looking, he's exploring all the different tunnels. He's trying to find the tunnel into the archives, obviously. And he finds one where, there's iron grates blocking the way down. There's clearly areas that they've blocked off that they don't want Corden into. So I'm curious. That's why I think that Ari might get into behind the 4-plate door through the Underthing. Is I think that might be the way she fucking gets back behind the 4-plate door, because I think she's
Oh.
I think it's highly likely that one of the princesses that he's going to rescue from the Barrel King is Ari.
That's
and I
crazy.
think that it might be that the Underthing is what leads her to it.
That's crazy that I hadn't. It seems so obvious now to have made that connection. I mean, I understood what you had said before, where she's the princess with the Barrel King. It all makes sense in terms of the logical progression with what Rothfuss hints at. But I hadn't pieced together that she could find another way in there because she's so intimately connected with the Underthing. I mean, this is her place. This is her world. That makes total sense that she would sort of find a way in there, and now she's held captive. So Kvothe has to become Mario and save her from, Koopa.
King Koopa.
Yep.
Yeah.
Most logical conclusion.
The other thing about this part that got to me was when he's getting into the narrow crevice and he gets stuck with his arm behind him, and so just so you guys know, like this happened to me in a cave when I was a kid, and I've sworn off I'll never go into another cave, and I'm not claustrophobic, but like I have a weird fear of caves, and I won't go in one, and I won't go scuba diving. And this
That's
part
kind of
I have no desire. Like just that when he reads about that, it makes me uncomfortable. And he's like, if you've never been deep underground, I doubt you can understand what it's like. The darkness is absolute, almost tangible. It lurks outside the light, waiting to rush in like a sudden flood. The air is still and stale. There's no noise except what you make yourself. Your breathing becomes loud in your own ears. Your heart thumps. And all the while, there's the overwhelming knowledge that thousands of tons of earth and stone are pressing down above you.
It's funny. I was going to read that in the sense that I like it. I actually like that state, which is funny. It's funny you guys mention that because I remember going caving as a kid, and I like it. I like just like the absolute sort of nothingness of it because we don't get that, dude. We're always distracted by so many different things. There's always, I mean, I can get the claustrophobic feeling, and what the part of the caving that I like is where it doesn't feel like a closed space. You're in a cave that has some openness to it, but I like the absolute dark and silence that you're just there in your own sense, and it's your own sensory is what you can feel, and you can actually hear your heartbeat, which I've had that. So it's interesting.
It's not the darkness or being underground that would bother me. I'm talking about like the crawling through a tunnel.
I hear you. Yeah,
and you're like fucking where like you barely have any maneuverability.
Yes.
And like if you felt like you got stuck, then how the fuck do you get out? Like how
I understand.
You can't back up, can't go forward, and you're stuck in a cave underground with no fucking way out. Like no, fuck no. If I was in a cave, I'm not going into any tight space.
No, I agree with that, and that's the part. So you didn't read that part though, and that's what Fitz was referring to as well. That bothers him, and I agree. Yeah. That's a feeling that I'm not going to try to recreate for myself. But I like the first part, the paragraph that you read. I like that dark space of just like of sort of like a nothingness in a sense. It's very sort of a calming present sort of situation. It all falls apart the second you're stuck and you can't go forward or back and you don't know where you're going. And then, panic sets in. Now that heartbeat you can hear is speeding up. Now you're sweating. Now you can't breathe so well. Yeah, that stuff. Yeah, I'm not real into that part of it. The panic setting. Yeah, I'm not real into that. But
and so to add to that, I'll just mention that that thing that he mentions where you have thousands of pounds of rocks like that actually does go through my mind. When I've been in a cave, it's like, if this just, happened to fall, because it is in essence a giant boulder on top of me, that if it, if something breaks and it falls, you're squished or your leg squished and you can't get out and you're dead. Not for me.
Yeah, I mean, you could do that now. I could say a plane could fall on my head right now. Helicopter fall on my head, right? But you make an omelet, bro. I mean, or make lemonade is what I'm saying. I mean,
I'm always terrified that a plane or a helicopter is going to fall on my head when I'm outside.
It's true. Every time you walk outdoors.
Every time I go outside, I run to my car, full sprint, dead sprint.
Well, it's all those drones.
Dive into it. Like I have someone open the door, and then I dead sprint and fucking Superman dive into the car.
It's all those birds aren't real shit, right?
Yeah.
It's all those drones everywhere that are trying to attack you. The Hitchcock birds. Or well, shit, man. I get it now.
Like, get out of my way! Fucking running into places. Like, Jesus Christ, man, a plane could have fell on my head. You're blocking the door? What are you doing, you idiot? Then he gets out of there, and he goes and sees Fela, and she answers the door, and she was unmistakably naked with a bedsheet half wrapped around her. I will admit that the sight of gorgeous, full-breasted Fela half naked in front of me was one of the most startling, erotic moments in my young life.
And then we're all like, yeah, right.
This fucking punk-ass fucking nerd doesn't fucking do shit about. Yeah.
Well, he's honest about, you know what? And I'll admit that, I was quite aroused. But I told you before, I'm not into that whole rape thing. Would you like to come inside? Yeah. Hey, did I tell you I'm not into rape? Did I tell you that? Did I tell you, Fela? I don't know if we talked about it.
Just want to make it clear yet again. Not a fan of rape. I think it's bad. I think it's wrong.
Hey, Fela, I know it's 2 a.m. and I'm waking you up in a dead street, out of a dead sleep. I just want to let it be known, first and foremost, I'm not here to rape rapist.
You. Yeah. I would never rape you.
Do you need to come in?
It's a great thing to tell a girl, like if you're going on a first date, like, hey, just want to get this out of the way. I'm not a rapist, so feel free to drink as much as you want tonight.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I don't have any roofies in my pockets, I swear.
I would never do something like that. In my life, would never do that. Like, what the fuck? Why would you say that?
What do you mean? Well, now I think you're going to... What? No, I was saying the opposite.
What do you do for a living? I'm a full-on rapist. I mean, a philanthropist.
Kvothe is very serious about his work. I mean, that's one thing you could say here. Do you need to come in? I can't stay. I need you to meet a friend of mine in the archives tomorrow. Fifth bell by the foreplay door. Can you do that? Yeah, man. Just shaking your head, like, dude, come on, bro. Like,
at least he acknowledged it. He's like, it says a great deal about what I found in the tunnels underneath the university that I was halfway back to my room at Anchors before I realized I had turned down an invitation from a near naked fella to join her in her room.
Well, and we've heard from, we know already he saved her life. Probably going to be into him over that. Gets him a cloak, comes on to him super strong. Even hear from Simon. Well, I think it was Simon or Will's like, Fela's Simon. Into you. If you're interested, she's into you. She's been talking about you.
Talks about you. I think you're a hell of a guy.
He just doesn't even hear it. Yeah, it's ridiculous. But yeah,
he was entranced by the wind at that moment. But yeah, he's always got his fucking head in the clouds when it comes to fucking Fela, fucking jackass. And yeah, fucking just totally blows it, and then fucking gets back to his room by himself, and that's when he starts thinking about naked Fela. That's another fucking hint towards playing a little pocket pool in his room, since he's such a fucking putz with women.
Playing pocket pool.
But yeah, then the next scene is him in the archive, standing in front of the foreplay door, silent and immobile as a mountain, Valeritas. And so she's like, when she sees it's Kvothe, she's like, how'd you get in here? Lauren will burst a vessel. Do you want to get us both expelled? They wouldn't expel you, I said easily. You're guilty of willful collusion at the very most. They can't expel you for that. You'll probably get off with a fine since they don't whip women. I shifted my shoulders a little, feeling a dull tug of the stitches across my back, which seems a little unfair if you ask me. I love that aspect of it. Where he's like, hey, you won't get expelled. You only get this. And, it's not really fair that they don't whip women. Like, you don't even fucking get kind of punishment they would give me.
Yeah, I love all this, man. I love like figuring out. It's just such a great level to bring in to the books of having the archives this mess and just the politicization of the archives and how they arrange it, how they organize it, how there's been like intellectual wars over the years between different archivists and the groups of scribs and everything. Dude, I love it, man. I love that whole other element to it because it brings so much more depth to how difficult it is for. I mean, he wouldn't even. I mean, he stooped to have to go get Fela, right? I mean, that's the whole thing. Is like he can't find any of these books. He doesn't know. Like, so he's having to go to her for help because he can't figure this shit out on his own. You know, before everybody else depends on the scribs.
And it's also another one of these. There's no clear path to Kvothe's success in what he's trying to find. We're always coming.
Yeah. Well, it's the sheer desperation of it. It's the sheer frustration and desperation that he's built to, because this is his life's pursuit, and he's so close. He always thinks he's getting this much closer, and finally, he's this much closer, and it's just fucking maddening that now he still can't get access to what he thought he would get access to.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that it's at his fingertips, it's millions of books in no particular order.
And I like the aspect of it where she's like, you know, the scribs have to spot check the reading holes to make sure fucking the students aren't banging away at each other in them. I like just those little touches of like, you know, you're still dealing with a bunch of fucking horny kids in school, fucking banging each other in these dark archives. Like, why in the archives?
It's pretty great on
get a fucking room, you weirdos.
It's pretty great on
Public
a couple
sex,
levels.
Dan, it's a thing.
Yeah,
people get turned.
Well,
on.
it's not just that. It's dark in there, right? You know, they're studying for hours, but it's also interesting in the sense that it reveals, you know, our little innocent Kvothe, where he's like, "What? Like, excuse me?" Clutching his pearls, where he's just like, "Hey, what?" And she's just like, "Yeah, there's a lot you don't know about the archives, bro, little boy."
But then we get a little piece of information that gives an answer to one of your questions you asked before, Tim, where he's like, you know, I'd organize them geographically, flip more pages, Ator, Modag, and Vent. I frowned, looked at the spine of the book. How old is this? The Ator Empire absorbed Vent over 300 years ago. Over 400 years ago, she corrected. So you'd asked when we talked about King Phasia being the king of Vent, and when did Mayor Alvaron's family get rolled up into the Vent, you know, the Vent kingdom. And so the Aturan Empire kind of rolled up the Vents 400 years ago. So you know, when they talk about like 12 generations, but clearly, you know, this is more than 400 years ago that King Phasia was around.
Interesting.
So a long ass time ago.
But I mean, relatively speaking, right? Because if you're spanning that long, his family name still wields a lot of power, a lot of influence, at least.
Yeah,
right? It seems.
Yeah, his you know, one of his descendants is King of Vent currently.
Yeah.
So, but the origin of King Phasia, like it's more than 400 years ago at the earliest, and probably quite a bit more. But that gives us a little more clarity on that time span. And then we also get, you know, she's like, evidence suggests it takes more than just one lifetime. There are over 750,000 volumes here. Fucking a shitload of books. And that's not even taking into consideration the clays or scrolls or fragments from Kaloptena. So when they talked about Kaloptena was burned and a bunch of the information was lost in the world, I think that's more than likely was something done by the Chandrian or the Amir trying to destroy information, and apparently they still have fragments of information from Kaloptena, so that might be some kind of information that he's able to access later. I think it's either going to be he's going to gain knowledge from the Yillish knots or the fragments from Calatina.
Yeah, it's I like this. I like this element as well because it sort of speaks of like Alexandria, and the burning of it's true to life, right? True
Yeah,
to
and
life.
they got they got we effectively lost almost 200,000 books from Tollum when Tollum burned the Larkin
Yeah,
ledgers. 200,000. So that's, there's basically 750,000. So almost a quarter of the books that they have are misplaced or,
yeah.
they don't know where to find them.
I love that element to it because that broadens it out in your mind to a big degree. Because, all right, 750,000 books. That's a lot of books, obviously. And then picturing all the different levels and how it's kind of just a mess architecturally. But then, and it's dark, and just like the painstaking way to try to search out the information, and then something like that, another element like that, where now 200,000, so nearly a quarter of the books are completely misplaced. So now, like the system, you're completely dependent on like scrivs, and yeah, it's
You would
a
think
very interesting element.
someone would be like, okay, look, here's what we're going to do. Like, we're going to have 50 scrivs and you're going to take 100 books a day and you're going to organize them by author or just category. And then we're going to have a note card so that anybody who, if they know the author's name, the title of the book, or the category of the book, they can just look up from that and just, you think you could organize.
Still only 5,000 books a day. It'd take you years.
Yeah, but it's worth it. I mean, but that's the interesting thing is as hard as they go, as hard as Fela goes into, you're not even close to how big the problem this is. I still am like, I'm kind of with Dan where my mind's like, all right, fine, I'll go with it for the book's sake, for the story's sake, but you can get this done. Come on now. I mean, is like just I mean,
100. It would be 750,000 books. 5,000 a day is 150 days.
I guess it wouldn't take you that long, huh?
No.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you you agree on a system. I mean, at this point, I mean, Fela's very passionate about it. She's talking about how this is always a problem and the next archivist comes in and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, okay, fine. But there's got to be at least a point where they say there's an archivist that's in charge for 5 years or a year or a few years. If they implement a plan that they seek out and they have enough scrivs to implement that plan, it doesn't seem like it's that difficult, get Puppet in there and make it happen. Let's,
Yeah.
I wonder how many books is in, a large library anyway. Your city library, Indianapolis Library.
I mean, in our world.
I wonder how many books that is. I don't really have any idea how many books that would be.
Yeah.
8 million.
I would
think that.
I would be interested.
8,037,037 at the Indianapolis Public Library.
I would be interested to look it up.
Information readily available.
I used to spend a lot of time in the downtown Indianapolis Library, and there's a lot of books. L.A. is massive compared to that. Los Angeles is downtown. Sure. It's massive, and then also the branches, especially a city like L.A. It's phenomenal the amount of books and all these different branches around. I mean, it's pretty fascinating. I mean,
you should see the library they got at Amazon.com.
Yeah.
Holy
I knew
shit,
you were gonna go there.
Big.
I knew you were gonna go there.
Holy shit!
Have you ever
like on the internet? There's pretty much every book ever.
Yeah,
it's fucking crazy.
You know
what the problem? But here's the problem that you run into though, Dan. Real quick, the printed versions many times are much more accurate than those digital versions that you find out there.
That makes sense.
What I'm saying? Because it's so much harder to update that digital version. We've had evidence right here with the book we're talking about.
You got to go into everybody's individual book and type in the new word.
Well, how is it that my printed version is more accurate than your fancy internet.
It's
your
way
fancy
easier
digital
to
version.
print one word, extra word on every new copy than to type in, go into everybody's. You got to access. You got to get their email, their fucking passwords. Got to go in, fucking
You know how many
just
people have
individually
Kindle,
type
Tim?
in those words.
Lots.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah, it's crazy how difficult
A
it is.
lot of people have
so
that.
ridiculous.
Did you guys catch the double entendre to end the chapter? She turned and began to climb the stairs. I followed her silently, appreciating the new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
I know what he was appreciating.
I don't know where that spot is, by the way. I'm looking for it, and I don't see it. Maybe it's not
Towards
in
the
my
very
book.
end. Might be even the last sentence.
It is the last sentence. I followed her silently, appreciating the new perspective. Nice. Well done.
Yep. That's it for me on that chapter.
Yep, that's it.
All right, then chapter 91 is called Worthy of Pursuit. In this chapter, Kvothe continues to learn naming and watch Dinah run through other dudes. He receives advice from Will and Sim and awaits repercussion from Ambrose. Guys?
Yeah, so he gets to spend more time with Fela. She teaches him the inner workings of the archives, and I like that Elodin did something that could conceivably be referred to as teaching, but for the most part he seemed more interested in confusing me than shedding any real light on the subject of naming. My progress was so non-existent that I wondered at times if there was any progress to be made at all. She's, now once we've seen Elodin go through the process, it's clear that Kvothe just doesn't get it. That it's very difficult to teach, and he doesn't understand what Elodin's trying to fucking do for him. He doesn't understand the there's actually a method going on here. He's not just fucking around. He's doing this purposefully and for a specific, to achieve a specific outcome, to get him to be able to wake his sleeping mind.
It's interesting.
It makes sense according to what Elodin actually said a couple chapters ago, where naming's not something that you can teach or speak of and make people understand. It's something you know and understand, and that's how you learn it.
Yeah, what was that, like writing on a paper to try to explain what paper is, or something like that? Like some imagery he used like that.
Using a pencil to write on a pencil what a pencil is, or something like that.
Yes.
It's a weird description.
Something along those lines, and it I like the way Rothfuss presents it to us, because their relationship and this back and forth, where Kvothe starts to see it a little bit, then comes back out of it and starts to see it a little bit, and Elodin's trying to insinuate all these things subtly, because you have to. You can't beat somebody over the head with these lessons. It just doesn't work that way. It's interesting because to me it sort of plays like his and Denna's relationship as well, where we're in on something that they both are not fully in on. You know what I mean? Especially Kvothe is not fully in on. Kvothe doesn't see that he's killing it when he's with Denna, and Denna would probably give up everything if he would go at her and say, "Be with me," and the reverse would be the same. He would probably go right with her if she would make clear to him, instead of playing her little games, or instead of him playing his little games. And it's like he thinks Elodin's playing little games, when actually Elodin's trying to like bring him in, and it's missing. It's going past Kvothe, but we see it, which is great. I mean, those are great moments where we get to take part in what's being communicated between two people, and they're not seeing it. Creates that tension that you guys don't like, but it also does I mean, that's the blood of, that's the beating heart of the story. That's what keeps us frustrated or excited about what's coming next.
I love his description though when he does start going into talking about Denna, because There's a lot of good information. I think he's right in a lot of respects, and then he's fucking blind in others.
Yeah.
And so he's like, still, I kept coming. Why? Because whenever she saw me, some light would go on inside her, making her glow for a moment. She would jump to her feet, run to me, and catch hold of my arm. Then, smiling, bring me back to her table and introduce me to her newest man. I came to know most of them. None were good enough for her, so I held them in contempt and hated them. Then, in turn, they hated and feared me. And, you know, we get like they would always react the same way, trying to prove ownership of her in small ways, holding her hand, a kiss, a too casual touch along her shoulder, which there's two ways that this happens. One I think is appropriate, the other is just makes you look like a fucking bitch. Is there's the one where you're marking your territory and you're basically like fucking pissing on your girl in front of other dudes to make sure that they know fucking this is your girl.
Which is
the
reads very much as insecurity.
Yeah, it's super.
And you're using her as like a pawn, which I've never been in that position. It's obvious, but I've never been in that position. But I imagine that's a very uncomfortable position for the woman to be in, being wrapped in this guy's insecurity. What the fuck?
The other though is I don't have a problem with is sometimes you're in a situation where you're around a guy that just doesn't realize this girl is your girlfriend, and so you're just trying to give like a subtle hint without sitting there coming out and say, hey, this is my girlfriend, like you're trying to give them a heads up, basically, don't fucking put your foot, so they don't put their foot in their mouth or do something to embarrass themselves. But that's a more subtle thing. It's not trying to mark your territory. It's just trying to like fucking give them a social clue so that they know, how to interact in that situation. So that's a little bit different.
Well, and then there's an interesting nuance that is played with as well, where it's a very it's kind of an exalted way and like a poetic way to justify being that sad sack, lonely lover admirer that's just waiting it out, that's playing that war of attrition and waiting. She'll always come back to me because I'm her best friend. But he's never going to make a move. You know what I'm saying? It's like ultimate sad sack, and like the way that he describes it, I've known her longer, my smile said. True, you have been inside the circle of her arms, tasted her mouth, felt the warmth of her, and that is something I have never had. But there is a part of her that is only for me. You cannot touch it, no matter how hard you might try, and after she has left you, I will still be here, making her laugh, my light shining in her. I will still be here long after she has forgotten your name. Okay,
which he
make a move.
He's right. Like, I mean, if he was actually friend zoned, then that would be sad and pathetic because it's never gonna happen, bro. But that's not actually the situation with him. The only reason it's not happening is because he doesn't think it could happen. If he realized it could happen, I think it would happen.
I reference it because it is one of the best articulations of a guy that is doing that. You know what I'm saying? That like she's never going to get with you. You're just the nice guy that lives next door who's always been super nice, and she cries about her boyfriend to you, but you're too plain or whatever the reason is. It's just never going to happen. Obviously, that's not the situation in this case. There's other things that are holding him back. But it is still frustrating that this is his consolation. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could have more if you were willing to take that risk, which he's not willing to take. But, I mean, it's not as if we don't get justification for why he's not willing to take that risk, because right before then, when he describes them, he can't be them. He can't put himself in a position to be them. He can't have her see him in that light. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I was just going to say one thing about that passage that you read, Tim. About these sad saps. They are getting it with Dinah. I think that as vague as Rothfuss can be here, he said Kvothe said what you had read, that they felt her warmth, which is something that Kvothe hasn't experienced. Well, if he's talking about a literal warmth, he did, snuggle or cuddle with her on top of the waystones while they were staying away from the Dracus. So I think he's alluding to a different kind of warmth, if you know what I mean.
Well, yeah. But yeah, they aren't the fucking sad sacks. He's talking about Kvothe in that scenario is the sad sack.
I'm talking about about the guy that's just waiting it out and not willing to take his shot, and then if he can't have the girl he wants, move on to the next girl that you could be happy with. In this case, it's a special case, obviously, because Kvothe, he can't allow himself to lose the only thing that he has that is close to like what was his family. But it's interesting too. There's this paragraph about Denna where there were tears. He's talking about her and how he helps her, keep herself together, what have you. There were tears once or twice, but they were not for the men she had lost or the men she had left. There were quiet tears for herself because there was something inside her that was badly hurt. I couldn't tell what it was and didn't dare to ask. Instead, I simply said what I could to take the pain away and helped her shut her eyes against the world. So yeah, she's got some deep skeletons that cause her to act the way she does. Yeah, but it's so interesting because, I mean, her utility, it seems, in the world in terms of continuing her progression. I mean, you brought this up after the Dracus. She manages to find somebody, get to town, and to be in a pretty decent position after being left on a rock with nothing. Right? Yeah. So she's a hustler and she makes it work. But it's so interesting because Kvothe's on his own. Not fully, obviously he has friends and what have you, but it's a completely different element where, she's bringing people in and people want to be with her, and then she shuts them out. So she's got this. It's going to be really interesting to see what that backstory is, or if Rothfuss gives it to us. I mean, it's not necessarily just to be taken for granted that he will. Maybe he doesn't. I mean, it's interesting to keep it mysterious, but there's definitely he's definitely created a very, very interesting woman here, which is, again, this goes back to what we've been saying since like the beginning of the show, which is not only is she realistic, she's extraordinarily interesting, realistic woman character, female character, where it's just like, this is that girl that you get ever more challenged. Like, I'm going to crack this. I'm going to figure out what's going on here, what her deal is. It's like taming the wild animal. She is like that. She is the wild animal, and it makes it that much more, intriguing to pursue. And Kvothe, I mean, like we always say, or like Kvothe is always told, you don't dream small, right? I mean, Elodin just said that about the door. You don't look for small secrets. He's trying to crack the ultimate nut, it seems, in terms of, I didn't really mean that as a pun, but there's some triple entendre there.
Nut.
Yeah.
But with Denna, it seems to be like Diak knows it. All these individuals who have pursued her realize how difficult she is and how she'll just leave dudes by the wayside. I mean, we heard about with Stanchion. Stanchion's like still broken up. Not Stanchion.
Diak, and then also their buddy.
That's who I'm thinking of. Savoy's like still like broken up about it, apparently. So he was like really, really into her, and she just left him without an explanation. I mean, that's pretty brutal to do to somebody that you got all swept up into you.
You guys think that there's a possibility that Kvothe is projecting here? Like, I don't expect that you guys will agree with this, or that I even agree with it, but we don't know a whole lot about her history or anything, except that we know that she's a high dollar hooker. And so, I would expect that anyone who's in that lifestyle is going to have a few tears and have some sadness about the path that they're in. It could have nothing. I'm just pointing out that it could have nothing to do with some deep sadness that she has that Kvothe doesn't know about. could be the obvious thing that she's in a lifestyle that she it's not a great lifestyle to be a part of.
No, but it's more than that. It goes deeper than that. I think that's pretty clear. I mean, because the capability she has, the personality, the knowledge, the ability to intermingle with so many different groups, to just be able to seamlessly go from broke to fucking riding fucking horses with some rich dude in a day. Like she's too on it in so many regards. Knows all these poems. She's witty. She's articulate. She's charming. Like she's got too much going on for it to be like that. This was always her life. It can't be that case. There's something had to have broken to put her in a position. Like where's her family? Like, why doesn't she have any family that she can turn to? Like, there's something fucking happens. It's even girls that, go down that route. It's go in, find girls that, go down these kind of paths. It's almost universally something fucked up happened to them in their youth or in their young teenage years. It's almost never the case that it's just like I had a great family, had a great upbringing, and everything was going great, and I just decided this was the perfect life for me.
You're saying this is not Julia Roberts and Pretty Woman?
Yeah.
Dan, consider Tim. I mean, he was raised up in a good family. He's smart. He's intellectual, funny, quick-witted. But at the end of the day, he's just a low-dollar hooker.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree with the end of that. The first part of that, no, I don't think that was accurate.
Because of his redheaded family, you think is not a good family?
I mean, like you were like, he's funny and witty. Like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, look, he's had a rough time of life, but we don't need to blow smoke up his ass. We can tell him the truth.
I think I would always go the route of what is more interesting for the book, and it is more interesting that. Well, I mean, and then also she could be broken up about the fact that she's serving a role, right? She doesn't want to do these things, but she somehow has to serve her purpose, right? I don't know how owned she is by Brayden, or I don't know how much of a role she's playing, but she's got her Jack in the Box. I mean, she's got her focus on her career.
She owns 5 Jack in the Boxes, man. Like, she's got shit going for her. It's not like...
but inflation in the Fae is really high right now, so she's not making a lot of coin off that.
Yeah, well, that's true.
What do you mean that's true? What the fuck? But no, I mean, it does kind of irk that way, where it could be. Although even in that sense, that makes her less appealing if she was simply serving a role. It does. I mean, it does seem that the ultimate sacrifice for Kvothe would be he can't be with her. I guess the ultimate was he fucking murders her or something, or he has to sacrifice her, or he has to look like a piece of shit in her eyes, something like that. He has to make some choice like that. Where my point in even going there is that
he white fangs her.
I don't know what that means.
Like at the end of White Fang, like he has to fucking scare the wolf or dog away, whatever. Like, get out of here! Leave! I never loved you! Run! Get away from me!
As he's crying or something. Yeah. I imagine the character is weeping. Yeah. I've never seen this, but yeah, that makes sense for what you're describing. Yeah, I mean, it seems, yes, that kind of speaks to what I was talking about. Like, it's something of that nature that he may have to choose to do to save her, or to make the more noble choice. Which, again, so leading into that, it would sort of feel like, so she's, I mean, it gives her less depth if she's simply playing a role to do these things. I feel like there's got to be there's some ideal she's looking for, or I don't know, man. She's a hard one to crack, to try to figure out what the ultimate motivation is for her. Where's this all coming from?
I love when he starts talking about Will and Sim giving him advice, and he's like, the compassion I appreciated, but the advice was worse than useless. They urged me towards the truth, told me to open my heart to her, to pursue her, write her poetry, send her roses. Roses? They didn't know her. But I love that aspect of it, is like they got the fucking high school romance fucking advice. Like, yeah, fucking make her a mixtape.
Write her a note and tell her how much you love her. Tell her how you feel.
Make her mixtape.
Fucking this terrible, fucking stupid nerd advice.
Well, maybe it would have worked. You know? Not the roses, obviously. But
make the move, yeah. Don't make their move, but make a move, a better move.
Yeah. Yeah,
Don't
do
be
your
a
Kvothe
huge
thing.
fucking nerd.
Yeah, do like your move. You know, first of all, take the cloak off. I know that's what you think is cool, but take that off, and then do your move, which would be.
He drops that cloak, she will make the move. She'll be like, finally, finally, you're becoming a man. I've been waiting for this day.
But yeah, I mean, he goes as far as saying, I will not be one of the 100 cow-eyed suitors who go mooning after her like love-struck sheep. But I like Sim's whole thing where it's like, I just don't understand what you see in her, man. Like, I know she's charming, fascinating, and all that, but she seems rather cruel. And it's great. I love Kvothe's reaction of, yeah, that's exactly what she is. It is that she's cruel. You know, and they're back and forth about that, where it's like,
yeah,
what? No, you're not going to defend her? And he's like, well, no, cruel is the word, but I don't think you're saying cruel and thinking, but I think you are saying cruel and thinking something else. Then is not wicked or mean or spiteful. She is cruel.
I love Sim's response. He's like, I think she might be some of those other things and cruel as well.
I think you're blinded by the light here, bro. Yeah. I think you got those, goggles on, bro.
What Kvothe is saying about it is how I'd characterize, like, you know, saying that somebody's cold. You know, it's like, cold and calculating. It's separating your emotion from your logical side and doing the things that you have to do emotionlessly.
Well, I don't know that I would say like she's cold and calculating. It's just like her by her very nature, the life that she has, to try to tie her down is a mistake, so that, you know, when someone tries to tie her down, it's going to blow up in their face because her nature is going to rear its head and she's going to fucking get the fuck out of there. And so I don't think it's like that she's cold and calculating. It's just who she is, and
cruel?
They don't. I agree.
It's read as cruel,
she is
how she treats others.
What happens to these guys, like they get fucking heartbroken and shit, is cruel in the sense that he means.
Yeah.
But I think the reason for it is not that she's just like cold and calculating. I think it's just that she's not going to be a girl that gets pinned down. Like I've said, you know, if Kvothe approached her and like be a partner in crime with me, I think that's the way you approach a girl like Denna. I'm not here to take care of you. I'm not here to fucking, put you underneath me where you're reliant upon me, but we could go fucking hand in hand and fucking do this shit together and be partners. I think that's the way to approach her, and no one approaches her like that. They all approach her like she's some fucking weak, wounded animal that they need to fucking, nurse back to health. And when they do that, her nature fucking rears its head and she gets the fuck out of there when they try to pin her down.
To Fitz's question, though, I think the Kvothe statement's perfect. If a storm blows down your house or breaks a tree, you don't say the storm was mean. It was cruel. It acted according to its nature, and something unfortunately was hurt. The same is true of Denna. So yeah, I mean, again, it's just her nature. That's her way. But again, what I find quite vexing is that paragraph about her being broken up at the end of it. Why is she hurt? Because it seems like if she's this storm, she's this wild thing that just in a way sort of runs roughshod over these dudes and leaves them wanting. Why is she broken up at the end of it? Is it just that, well, she can't find someone that she wants to be with, or she can't just make it work in the way that she wants? Is it all of these guys are trying to do what Dan was just saying, which is, I'm going to provide for you, I'm going to take care of you, and she doesn't want that? Is it the fact that she can't get something like this to work that she's broken up about? Is it the fact that she's intentionally hurting these people, but she doesn't want to? So like she's playing a role? I don't know. That paragraph in itself really kind of, it deepens the whole situation for me, to try to then, I don't know what the word is, sort of come to grips with what exactly is going on with her. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I feel like he has a very good grasp of why she turns away, the dude she turns away, but he just doesn't understand what it would take to fucking get her, keep her.
I guess what I'm saying is it's hard to reconcile why she's broken up about it. I mean, is she broken up because she really wants Kvothe? You know what I'm saying? It doesn't seem like that. It more seems like it feels like she feels bad for laying waste to these people's, emotions. I mean, that's what that reads as to me.
She's sad about. I think she's haunted by her past. She can't even fucking go to sleep without fucking having nightmares. She's haunted.
Yeah, something crazy happened.
I think that's. Yeah, I think it's her past. I'm very very much enjoying the just considering the ins and outs of this character. She's very interesting, and we have so little to go off of except for how she acts and the few things that Kvothe says to describe her. But it opens up to kind of using your imagination about what might have happened in her past, how her story parallels Kvothe, and what exactly she's going through. Down to as much as how much does she really want to be with Kvothe, and if Kvothe did take that chance, would she act like a lot of young women do, girls, where they want something until they have it. I shouldn't say girls because everybody's kind of like this, but I've found that playing kind of the hard to get oftentimes worked with women, but then once you said, okay, well, let's go for this, then they're like, and went cold because they got what they wanted, and now they don't want it anymore.
No, I'm 100% like that. I mean, I've always been like that with. I'm just serious. Like there's been girls like I've told Tim like I'm infatuated with this girl, but I'm fairly certain that once I have her, I won't want her anymore. And then it'll happen. The fucking as soon as as soon as the walls are down, then it's like, yep, I was right. That was just pure infatuation. Now that I've fucking broken that wall down, this was not what I wanted at all. And then I'm like, how the fuck do I get out of this after I fucking did all that work to pursue it, without being just a total asshole?
It's a really fascinating, sort of biochemical equation that we have within us. You know what I'm saying? Just what we talked about before, that instance where when you're trying to get with the girl, and then the first time you sleep together, or you're in a bed together and she's sleeping on you, you're like, I'm fine, even though my whole side is asleep. But then a week later, you're like, get the fuck off of me. Can I get out of here now? Maybe not that soon, but still, it's an interesting biochemical thing that happens within us, where it gradually changes over time to a different.
What always trips me up is I can feel the emotions, and I can also recognize that I'm feeling the emotions, and the emotions might not be real, but I'm still ruled by the emotions. So it's I can logically think it through and understand that my emotions might be misleading me, but I still can't turn off the emotions. And so it's it's a weird dynamic of being able to kind of step outside yourself and talk to yourself from an outside perspective, but you're still ruled by your emotions in those scenarios, and there's not much you can do about it.
Actually, me and Tim have been talking about how we needed to talk to you about how much you're ruled by your emotions, and just you need to really dial it back a little bit, Dan.
I have good news for you. The next operating system you're going to upload totally takes care of that, so don't worry about it. It's coming.
All the emotional bugs, Dan, you're going to be living on easy street.
It's always been my biggest problem is I'm just very, very emotional.
But yeah, I mean, again, so what I was going to say was Rothfuss does a tremendous job for us in book 2. Spoilers included here. I mean, he gives us more about her. He gives us that conversation with the girl that we get to eavesdrop on, that Kvothe eavesdrops on, and it gives us so much more about her without giving us the entire story. Again, we get little hints at what she's been through, but we still don't know where she's from, what her family life was like, what happened. All that stuff is still in the dark. We just know what part of the path that's got her to where she is now, and part of the depths that she's had to go to, and how calloused she is emotionally about it, and delivering that information to somebody else who's about to go through something similar. So the way Rothfuss does it is fucking great, man. He knows these characters so well, and he's so judicious with giving us the information about them. And he managed in the 2 books, he's managed Kvothe and Dinah so well. It doesn't surprise me it's taken so long to get the 3rd book out, because if you're going to keep that delicate balance going and try to culminate everything else along with it without breaking that apart, plus fill those holes,
Well, and it's the same thing that we've been saying, that dance that he does around it, where he only lets you in on the character in the way that they act. He doesn't, or the things that they do. He doesn't, spell it out for you in a description of the way that people are. He spells it out in the way that they walk, the way that they react to things.
I like too the way it kind of ends after he has this conversation with them. He tears off her name from the letter she wrote him, folds it up, and does basically a magic 8-ball, but he throws it out into the wind, and he's just sitting there waiting for his answer, and it's just teasing him yeah, oh no, maybe, whoa, no, yes, and it just fucking hangs out there and never fucking goes one way or another, never fucking picks a direction for him. So he's just left in limbo without fucking he can't even get a magic 8-ball answer. It's it fucking just the thing keeps popping up, but it's just the corner edge that keeps hitting the front. Fucking is weighted wrong.
And talk about foreshadowing, and again, great way to lead into book 2. He then talks about the ongoing feud with Ambrose, how he's waiting for Ambrose to try to take his revenge, but he hasn't done it. And, comes to the conclusion that he had finally learned his lesson and was keeping a safe distance from me. I was wrong, of course, perfectly and completely wrong. Ambrose had merely learned to bide his time. He did manage to get his revenge, and when it came, I was caught flat-footed and forced to leave the university. But that, as they say, is a story for another day. I mean, it's such a great way to to lead in the next book. So he's gonna leave the university, but again, it leaves it open as to how that could occur. Obviously, he didn't give us any real ties to what was going to happen, but clearly that chapter's not done. So read on, basically.
Yeah, it's a good little cliffhanger. But yeah, that was it for that chapter for me.
Yeah, me as well.
Okay, then, chapter 92, The Music That Plays. In this, the last chapter of the book, Kvothe dismisses Chronicler and Bast and prepares for the following day. Chronicler goes to bed, but is awoken by Bast. We learn that Bast has lured Chronicler to the inn, and in order to wake Kvothe from his monotonous existence. A couple things that I noticed in this chapter, guys. One, it's not titled as an interlude, I guess, because it's not. It's at the end of the book. But one of the other bigger things I noticed was that he stops calling Kvothe and starts calling him Kvothe in this chapter, which I thought was interesting. In none of the interludes does he stray away from that. At least as far as I remember, he always calls him Coat when he's the innkeeper. But in this chapter, he goes ahead and calls him Kvothe.
It feels like he does become Kvothe in a sense when he's with Chronicler and Bast and is telling his story. When it's just the three of them in a room, the walls are down, right? Because everybody knows who he is, and he's talking about his backstory, so it's all out there. So it feels like he gets some of his vitality back, and he does in a way. He is Kvothe. He's not hiding. It's when somebody else comes in, he goes boom, right back into it. And it's so interesting, and we didn't really touch on it, but we've already touched on it. Chronicler sees him in that past interlude, and he's like, again, it's like, how did I even see him as somebody different?
Yeah, we did talk about that. I brought it up.
No, I know. I just didn't feel like it was emphasized. I mean, I kind of almost feel like I picture like slump back. You know what I mean? Just like,
yeah,
he just becomes a whip puppy or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I like to, like, when he brings up some of the hooks for the next book. We'll have some of my favorite stories. My journey to Alvaron's court, learning to fight from the Adim Felurian. So you learn he's going to meet Felurian. You hear that thing, and early on that he met Felurian and left with his sanity and everything. But the cool part is, like, when Chronicler in that previous interlude talked about when he's telling the story of Kvothe, he's like, I think he was in Severin. Like, you don't realize that he's talking about Alvaron's fucking court. But yeah, he was heavily hinting at, these areas he's going to go to in the next fucking book.
I remember in the first read through the learning to fight from the Adim that he hinted on that in like these previous chapters, so leading into it. But when he mentioned Felurian again, I was like, oh shit. Like, I remember getting kind of excited about it because of the mystique that's around her, because of what he'd said about her before, because it's a huge accomplishment. But you still don't really necessarily know that's going to be in the second book. When he says it here, it is kind of like, oh shit, we're actually going to get that. I remember having that feeling on the first read through. I was jacked, man. He did a tremendous job of just giving us these pepperings and these last, 6-7 chapters where he just keeps pulling us further and further towards what we're not going to have answered now, but is suggesting, we're going to get pieces of in the next book.
And it's interesting, like, when he's going through the motions, he's cleaning things, and it's like, as he went through the motions, his eyes were far away, remembering he did not hum or whistle. He did not sing. I think that's interesting just because I think, Bast is all hyped about Kvothe telling his story. But you could see Kvothe, when he is thinking about his story, it haunts him. Like, Bast is not going to get the story that he wants. He's like, just get him to fucking talk about the fun times, the good times. And Kvothe is like thinking about like the horrific nature of how it all goes. Yeah.
That's a good point, man. That's a really good point because that does tie in deeper to where his mind state is. And it's funny because Bast can't he's not Kvothe. Even though he may know how the story ends, he hasn't had to, he's not culpable, man, of what Kvothe is culpable for. So you got to imagine those demons weigh pretty heavy in his mind.
And also, like, you start to see the dark side of Bast here because even though Bast is, at least from what we can see at this point, that Bast is someone who just wants what's best for Kvothe. He wants Kvothe back to, his heroic nature.
He's kind of fun too. I mean, like he's just the kind of, he like goes to the town. He kind of like, likes getting with women. Yeah. He's just, he has a fun quality about him.
Get drunk. Yeah. And now we're starting to see that, this wildling kind of fey creature that's, he'll rip Chronicler's head off his shoulders, I'm sure of it. After what he did to the skin dancer, I think that in the way that he acts when Chronicler tries to rebut against what he what he wants him to do, I did believe that Bast would tear him apart and dance. I think he said dance in his entrails like a puddle or like a child in a puddle.
Yeah, I
or
definitely
something.
want to read a couple of those parts. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
it's similar. I mean, Florian's the same way. Like when Kvothe keeps pressing her on stories from the Chandrian, and then she's finally like, listen, if you ask me again about them, I'm going to fucking rip your body apart. Like, I'm going to break you, and then I'm going to fucking throw you out of the Fae, and so that you can never fucking get back here.
There were a couple things I wanted to mention before you go into that. One I thought was kind of interesting. It's small, but turning down his bed, Chronicler was surprised to see the sheets had been changed sometime during the day. The linen was crisp and smelled pleasantly of lavender. I mean, Kvothe didn't have to do that. Like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
We all know he's playing a role here. Chronicler knows it, yet he still takes the time to like be the innkeeper, to actually do a good job of it. So it doesn't matter what it is. He takes his work very seriously, even if it's just, you know, he chose to be an innkeeper and he's a fucking good one, right? He makes cider. He makes good stew for people. He has great things from all over the world. He can provide for people. And he even changes the fucking linens, you know, for this dude that already, he knows he's playing a role, but he still does it anyway. It's an interesting touch.
It's almost like he's not playing a role. You know what I mean? We talk about it, but Coat 100% has taken on this persona.
And I like the aspect of, like, you know, he takes off his clothes, takes off the iron wheel ring, basically, like it seems like a symbol of Telu's iron wheel that he hangs around his neck, and he sets that down, and then he like gets uncomfortable as he's laying there just in that darkness after, you know, he's seen a fake creature for the first time. Then he sees the fucking, you know, the skin dancer come in and murder some people, and then all of a sudden he's like, let me go fucking push this dresser up against the door and block the door, and let me go ahead and put my iron wheel back around my neck, and fucking then he finally goes to bed, and then fucking Bast comes in and wakes him up, scares the shit out of him. And
I was gonna say, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just, you know, Bast, when he comes in and he sees the dresser, he's like, that shows a certain lack of trust. Better not have scratched up the floors. He gets mad as hell at that sort of thing.
Well, I was going to say about the iron wheel. Does it lend him power? I mean, why take it off, put it back on? Why take it off?
Well, because the iron protects you against the Fae don't like iron, you know, and he obviously, which comes up, when Bast fucking threatens him and he tries to like snap back, he's like looking at his iron thinking it protects him, and Bast just rips it off his shoulder. He's like, nah, you don't get it. So that's why. Is because he thinks it's his protection, not that it gives him power. He thinks that if it's on him, it protects him.
Well, that's why I was kind of curious why take it off in the first place.
Because he felt, that's probably his routine when he feels safe.
I gotcha. So he felt safe, then he didn't.
Yeah. It seems like he was just going through his normal routine, and then like once he sat there and the fear crept in, then he's like, I gotta fucking put this back on. But I like too when Bast tells him to shut the fuck up. He's like, quiet. We have to be quiet. He has ears like a hawk. How? Chronicler began more softly than stopped. Hawks don't have ears. Bast gave him a puzzled look. What? You said he has ears like a hawk. That doesn't make any sense. Bast frowned and made a dismissive gesture. You know what I mean. He can't know that I'm here. It's a perfect fucking Tim moment. Fucking actually the shit out of him.
He did. It's funny too.
Actually,
just like
hawks don't have ears.
A normal kind of conversation that people would have, like, it struck me as very funny.
Fucking.
Well, it is eyes like a hawk. You know that, right?
Yeah.
Ears like a hawk.
I did. Go ahead. You're gonna get to it.
Well, I like when he's talking to him and he's like, why, what brought you here? And he first starts off, I collect stories, and when I get the chance, I investigate odd rumors and see if there's any truth behind them. Out of curiosity, which rumor was it? Bast asked. Apparently you got soppy drunk and let something slip to a wagoneer, Chronicler said. Rather careless, all things considered. Bast gave Chronicler a profoundly pitying look. Look at me, Bast said as if talking to a child. Think, could some wagon herder get me drunk? Me? And then he tells him, he was my message in a bottle, one of many. You just happen to be the first person to find one and come looking. Which, it's great because not only does it, show like how Chronicler got there, but it also lends the possibility that other people might show up, that someone else might get, a message in a bottle and show up in the next book. There's always that possibility that is out there that one of his enemies is going to find out and show up.
Yeah.
When he said it, I was I immediately thought that's not going to end well. Just throwing out messages in a bottle to I mean, Kvothe is a wanted man. Not only is there bounty on his head, but it seems like a lot of dangerous creatures or people want him dead. So,
yeah, and then he goes into when he's like, what's that got to do with the price of butter? He's like, it has everything to do with the price of butter, and it's a damn sight more than a bad mood, you ignorant, wretched, on-hot Thane. This place is killing him. And he gives the great, example of like, have you seen the Ghost and the Goose Girl, the Hot Penny King? Chronicler frowned. Is that one where the king sells his crown to an orphan boy? Bast nodded, and the boy becomes a better king than the original. See, he says, you see, there's a fundamental connection between seeming and being. Every Fey child knows this, but you mortals never seem to see. We understand how dangerous a mask can be. We all become what we pretend to be. Which is it's a great line, and it's to an extent it's accurate in our world. I mean, there is a reason why confident people tend to move up much more easily than people who lack confidence, and it's not because of their intelligence, their physical attributes, their skills, or anything like that. It's just there's something about confidence that moves you.
Well, you hear successful people say it all the time, like that old adage, act as if. And just doing that, whatever it does to your own mindset, if you put yourself in that role, soon enough you'll be that person that you've decided that you want to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's something to it. The placebo effect wouldn't exist if there wasn't something to, your mind state, your mental state. I mean, the placebo effect it's not only real, it affects a significant portion of people. Like when they do these drug tests and shit, it's like 15-20% are affected by the placebo. So that's the mind is much more powerful than we typically give it credit for as far as changing our reality.
Well, yeah, I mean, perception's everything, right? And how someone's going to act within a situation when an opportunity comes up. If they're a sad sack who's kicking rocks around, looking at their feet, thinking they're shit, and an opportunity comes up, they're not going to seize it. They're not going to think they're capable. So they should be like, well, I can't do that. But somebody that believes they are capable has an opportunity come up, they swing the bat,
Yeah.
Maybe you hit a triple. Maybe you hit a ground roll double, right?
Yeah. He gives another good example too when he talks about like the girl who does not see herself as pretty, and he's like, you can tell a girl she's beautiful and she's just going to think you're nice or sweet and just saying it just to, to fucking get her in bed or things along those lines. Manipulative or you're nice. But he's like, but there's a better way. You show her she's beautiful. You make mirrors of your eyes, prayers of your hands against her body. It's hard, very hard, but when she truly believes you, Bast gestured excitedly, suddenly the story she tells herself in her own head changes. She transforms. She isn't seen as beautiful, she's beautiful seen. And he's, and then Chronicler's, now people see him as an innkeeper, Chronicler said. No, Bast said softly. People saw him as an innkeeper a year ago. He took off the mask when they walked out the door. Now he sees himself as an innkeeper, and a failed innkeeper at that. You saw what he was like when Cobb and the rest came in tonight. You saw that thin shadow of a man behind the bar tonight. It used to be an act. I love the absolute disgust that Bast has for Kvothe, the bartender. He's just like, you saw that fucking pathetic wretch of a man.
Yeah. He's
makes you wonder how much he's seen of Kvothe the hero.
Well, I mean, it just really deepens the split here, and we get it again in the epilogue. But it deepens that split between the Coat and Kvothe. I feel like that line, which is a great line. She isn't seen as beautiful; she is beautiful seen. I feel like he used that in the strip club when he wrote this.
Yeah,
he used that with She Dynasty.
Do you think it worked
when she came off stage?
Yeah.
Tim, do you think it worked?
He's going after all the pregnant strippers and trying to build up their self-esteem.
But it's great. It's a great line. But yeah, I like this whole thing because it's very much about like self-identity, and Bast clearly has this really stoic belief in it, and it reminds me of Elodin as well when Elodin talks about when he panics about changing your name. That whole dynamic. It gets really emphasized. Rothfuss chooses to put a big emphasis in this world on that self-identity, that how someone identifies makes who they are, and it ends up it's true. It's true to a huge degree in our world as well. So it's a nice choice to emphasize that sort of thematic subject matter, I think, in any book, but he does a really cool job of it here with such complicated characters like Denna, like Kvothe. I mean, that's a big part of what we were talking about with Denna. Like, what is her identity? How does she see herself? What role does she play? Because the way she sees herself, it seems to be pretty bleak. She doesn't like who she is, it seems.
Yeah. And I love the part here where Chronicler, hears about that he started to write his autobiography, and then stopped, and Chronicler's like, can't you just tidy them up? On Palin, no. Bast looked horrified. He was furious after you read them. Bast shivered a little. You don't know what he's like when he's really angry. I know better than to cross him on something like that. But I love that aspect because Bast is... we see Bast do some crazy ass shit. Like with the fucking ink bottle and shit. Making like a fucking falcon of the ink that flies around, and he slams it on the fucking table and eats it or some shit. It's like he's got some crazy fucking powers, and he's like, hey, fuck no, I would not fucking cross this dude. Have you ever seen him angry? Like, nah, this dude's scary as fuck when he loses his temper.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine the things he's gonna do in book 3, man. Because I mean, we get it with the craziness with that troop or whatever, what do you keep calling them, the mercenary group, whatever the fuck, with the bandits. But it's so great because the way it's told, we're in his head, and he's always he's gradually doing more, he's gradually accomplishing more, so it gets all grounded in the sense that he's not doing something he is doing things that are extraordinary, and they're surprising even to him, and the fact that they're surprising to him grounds it further in the sense that, yes, he's doing these things that should not be possible, that someone should not be capable of, but the fact that he's able to do it while he kind of falls into doing it without a full-fledged plan at the outset. I can't imagine what it's like when he's got rings on all hands, rings on all fingers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like he's just wielding the power of the world.
Yeah, and he continues to grow in that way. I mean, everything that he falls into, it's always a little bit more, a little bit deeper, a little bit more powerful, and grows in that way.
And just imagine, like, if the ultimate sacrifice happens and he doesn't make that choice, and now he's made to be the bad guy. And Bast talks about his anger, and if he's wielding that type of power, fuck, man, he's going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, there's going to be some interesting fucking stories that are going to come out of that. Then I like to where Bast is kind of trying to explain to him what he wants him to do. And, he's like, you know nothing of the Fae. If you think our stories lack their darker sides. But all that aside, this is a fairy story because you are gathering it for me. And then he's like, telling him, you just push him, obviously you can't leave those darker parts out, but move him along, get him to talk about the fun times. And then he's like, his travels, his music. Bast stopped abruptly. Well, not the music. Don't ask about that. Or why he doesn't do magic anymore. Chronicler frowned. Why not? His music seems. Bast's expression was grim. Just don't, he said firmly. They're not productive subjects. I stopped you earlier, he tapped Chronicler's shoulder meaningfully, because you were going to ask him what went wrong with his sympathy. You didn't know any better. Now you do. Focus on the heroics, his cleverness. And then you get the best aspects. My favorite part of Bast in these stories is when the fucking mask drops and he gets fucking pissed and fucking snaps. And Chronicler's like, I'm a reporter. I'm just here for the story. The story is the important thing after all. Piss on your story, Bast said sharply. You'll do what I say or I'll break you like a kindling stick, Chronicler froze. So you're saying I work for you? I'm saying you belong to me. Bast's face was deadly serious. Down to the marrow of your bones. I drew you here to serve my purpose. You have eaten at my table, and I have saved your life. He pointed at Chronicler's naked chest. 3 ways I own you. That makes you wholly mine. As an instrument of my desire, you will do as I say. It's fucking great.
Man. The book takes a whole new turn at that point. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we've heard him address Bast in a similar way in the past, but at this point, yeah, it's and to me, it takes a whole really important turn at this point where it speaks of Cinder with Haliax. You know what I mean? You're a tool in my hand, and I will wield you for my fucking desires, or I'll break you. I mean, this is it's virtually the same dialogue. You know?
Yeah. And it also adds a new dynamic to Kvothe and Bast's relationship. Up to this point, you've kind of thought that Kvothe is Bast's teacher in some way, in some respect, but now we get a different aspect, and that is that Bast may be actually goading Kvothe into something else, trying to lead him, whether it be back into Kvothe, into his heroes. There's not. We were left with a mystery at the end of this book of why Bast is doing what he's doing, but obviously we learned that he is in some aspect leading Kvothe along.
Well, he's his fiercest defender. He is fiercely loyal to Kvothe, and he wants him to be back to who he was. He does not like to see his friend becoming the shell of a human, and so he's willing to fucking murder anybody who, he's willing to do anything it takes to get his friend back. He's by far, like, he is the most fiercely loyal person you could fucking find in a book. I mean, he's just another level of loyal to Kvothe.
It's kind of interesting though with the way Bast is, and it kind of reminded me of Florian as well. I mean, obviously they're both of the Fae, but Florian possesses manlings, as they call them, right? So she basically possesses them, and either in this case chooses to let them go or possesses them for as long as she likes, and then they're kind of ruined afterwards in most cases. But even in the sense of Bast, I mean, he's like, I want my Reshi back. I want him back the way he was, like he's his. I don't know. There seems to be this possessive nature where they like. I mean, I guess humans are capable of things that the Fae is not, and the Fae is capable of things humans are not. And I don't know. Just there's an interesting connection between the two of them, and then obviously we'll probably find out in book 3 what actually happened to get to this point. But again, just the way he says it does seem to be. I don't know. I saw a connection there with Florian and the way that she possesses or looks to possess.
Yeah, but the other aspect of it is like he doesn't feel like he owns Kvothe, like because
No.
he won't like go even go and snoop on his shit, look at
Mhm.
his fucking his papers. He's like fuck no. It's like I'm not fucking doing that. You're crazy. And so, but
Mhm.
yeah, he's wants his fucking friend back, and he's fiercely loyal to the nth degree. But and he shows it like when like Chronicler thinks like he looks down at his the iron on his fucking chest, and Bast is like, you think that iron will keep you safe? And he goes and he grabs it, and the tendons in Bast's hands creaked as he tightened his grip on the circle of iron. Listen, you cannot hurt me. You cannot run or hide. In this I will not be defied. As he spoke, Bast's eyes grew paler until they were pure blue of a clear noontime sky. I swear by all the salt in me, if you run counter to my desire, the remainder of your brief mortal span will be an orchestra of misery. I swear by stone and oak and elm, I'll make game of you. I'll follow you unseen and smother any spark of joy you find. You'll never know a woman's touch, a breath of rest, a moment's peace of mind. Bast's eyes were now the pale blue white of lightning, his voice tight and fierce. And I swear by the night sky and the ever-moving moon, if you lead my master to despair, I will slit you open and splash around like a child in a muddy puddle. I'll string a fiddle with your guts and make you play it while I dance. Bast leaned closer until their faces were mere inches apart. His eyes grew white as opal, white as a full-bellied moon. You are an educated man. You know there are no such thing as demons. Bast smiled a terrible smile. There is only my kind. Bast leaned closer still. Chronicler smelled flowers on his breath. You are not wise enough to fear me as I should be feared. You do not know the first note of the music that moves me. I love that part where he's like, I will string a fucking instrument with your guts and make you play it while I dance to the music. Like, that's such a great visual of just
Dude.
such a fucked up visual. And it's so fucking awesome as far as like a threatening fucking,
Yeah.
coming at him in a threatening
Well,
way. That's a great way to do it. It's a great
the
visual.
whole build-up is, an orchestra of misery. I'll make a game of you. I'll follow you unseen and smother any spark of joy. Just like the whole thing, man. The idea of like you will never see any glimpse of happiness or even, calm ever again. Jesus,
and that's,
man.
Yeah, that's like, if you don't make me happy, I will make sure you never experience joy. If you turn my master to despair, I will go to the next level where I rip open your body and I string an instrument with your guts, and then I dance while you play me music. It's like, so it gets real dark real quick if you cross this line.
Hey, Tim, did you notice how he swears that time?
Yeah, by oak and elm, stone and oak and elm.
Yeah. So I don't know,
Yeah.
if it's something that the Fey creatures or certain people, but yeah, it's one of those things again.
Yeah, it's cool you notice that guy. I was thinking the same thing. I'd mentioned that before where, it seems like nature is ancient to them. It's like their god, you know what I mean? Or it seems like that's what they tend to lean towards in terms of, their, I don't know, holiness rather than, Telu or Menda or whatever.
Like, after all that, then he's like, hey, listen, there's no reason we can't be friends. There's no reason we
look,
can't
man,
all get what we want.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
get your
I will
story,
murder
he gets to
you
tell it,
in
you
the
get to
worst
know the
way
truth.
ever. But just, take it easy. Write a decent story. Don't fuck with me. Don't fuck with Kvothe, and everything will be pleased as peaches.
Yeah. So
Everybody wins.
Hey, he's
That
like,
that
what do you
reminded me
get?
of like
What do you get out of this? And the question seemed to catch Bast unprepared. He stood still and awkward for a moment, all his fluid grace gone. For a moment it looked as if he might burst into tears. What do I want? I just want my Rushy back. His voice was quiet and lost. I want him back the way he was. Can I bring you anything before you go to sleep? A nightcap? More blankets?
Yeah. Now that part where he, ends explaining how he's going to rip his guts out, and then's like, no, but we're buddies. It reminded me like of Tony Soprano type of character, or a mafia boss. He's like gives him the worst case scenario, and then's like, now just be a good guy and do what I say, won't you?
Kind of like Tony Soprano with the guy that he steals his like sports store.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of.
And
yeah.
like he's like real buddy with him and all that shit. And then there's like the guy comes up like all fucking
The
pissed
Terminator.
because he's like their IRS is coming after me, and he's like, get back in your fucking hole, shut your mouth and get back in your, because he's having a conversation where they're talking about like Tony might be going down, and then this guy interrupts by fucking bitching about what's going on with him, and Tony Soprano just loses his shit on him. It's a classic scene.
Yeah, no, it's the interactions between them is fantastic because Tony still wants to like be his friend because like he just sees it as a job.
Well,
you know,
even
what I'm saying?
after
and
that,
the guy's like, yeah,
after the guy
I mean.
goes, after the guy goes running off, after he screams at him and like, get back in your hole, and then after the guy runs off, he's like, man, I'm sorry, like I didn't mean like.
Yeah. No, like because there's a later point where like he tries to just like chum it up with him at like a kid with their kids event or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, no, this is not happening. He doesn't say that, but you can tell the guy's been beaten to shit. Like you ruined this dude.
Yeah.
And you just don't get the fact that you ruin people and it affects them because Tony's like, yeah, look at the kids. Oh, isn't this great? And he's like, dude, my life is over. I'm probably going to kill myself. And you're just like happy as clams over here, like you motherfucking son of a bitch.
It's
you're
almost
a
like
sociopath,
I get the impression that like Tony Soprano's like a sociopath.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, exactly. It's like, well, and that's what that guy's. No, I agree. That's what I'm saying.
Might be.
He obviously is. He's fucking super sociopath.
Yeah, Bast is giving off that impression. That guy that you guys are talking about, that's Terminator 3.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
Same actor,
Yeah. Now, Bast seems to care deeply. He 100% cares deeply, but I mean, like he's fiercely loyal. Like, I mean, you don't get the sense that he's just fucking around when he's like, "What do I want? I just want my Reshi back." His voice was quiet and lost.
Yeah,
he was almost in tears at that point. Like he's not trying to fuck Kvothe over. That dude's on Kvothe's side, even though he's fucking he's amoral about it.
So I get this impression with the Fey creatures and with Ari too, of this like it's like this childishness, but there's a duality with like an extreme power or also intelligence, maybe of something that we just aren't aware of, but like that. I just want my Reshi back. Like, sounds like a little kid, but on the reverse side of that coin is like, yeah, he's also willing to, in order to get Reshi back, murder your whole family or something to that effect.
Yeah, this dude would move mountains for him.
Yeah, well, there's an inch, like you said, with Ari and especially Felurian. Yeah, they have this power they wield, and they don't see. Well, Bast is being extraordinarily. I mean, it's not just cruel. He's tearing this dude's life apart in terms of what he'll do to him, and I believe him when he's saying it. He will torture this guy if he doesn't do what he says. Felurian ruins people. Like, they never go back to normal. They're done. She just uses them, but she uses them in a way that is great for them and great for her in the moment. Just they can't go back to normal afterwards. So there's not necessarily like evil in it. It's just a different way of, or at least in her mind, it seems like. So, yeah, I think not only do they look at the world differently, they live in a different world.
It's like a sentient wildness or feralness, but a sentient. You know what I mean? Like, while they're cognizant and well aware of themselves, there's also that wildness that I guess that they can't.
That's part of the possessive nature that comes to mind for me, because they're immortal, right? Or it seems they're immortal. Like, compared to humans, they live for hundreds, if not thousands, of years. Humans don't do that. So they have this small span of time that, they get their little playthings with the humans, the manlings. So yeah, it's pretty great, man. He created these other worlds, and there's people that live in them, and they're different. It's pretty dope.
Yeah, this is a chapter that made me really like fucking Bast. I loved the fierce loyalty from him that's demonstrated. And and not only like fierce loyalty, but like kind of a psychotic fierce loyalty.
Yeah, I was gonna say the switchback, where he's just like, we can be friends. No, there's no reason we can't. It's like, dude, you know what you just said to me? Yeah. Like, are you not aware of what you're doing? What? Yeah, this shit is over. That's a really good comparison with the Tony Soprano thing, man. That's a really, really good comparison of something that I've seen that draws a similar sort of psychotic nature.
But yeah, that's it for me on that chapter. Just got the epilogue.
Yep.
Yeah. So the epilogue is again called A Silence of Three Parts, and mirroring the prologue. So part 1 is that hollow echoing silence. This time part 2 is Chronicler laying awake in bed, and part 3 again is that of a man waiting to die. Cut flower.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on it. It's very similar to the first one we go through. I do like that the part that he put on there where he's like, inside the Waystone Inn, a man huddled in his deep, sweet-smelling bed, motionless, waiting for sleep. He lay wide-eyed in the dark. In doing this, he added a small, frightened silence to a larger, hollow one. They made an alloy of sorts, a harmony. But I love that aspect of, like, it peeks in on Chronicler after his interaction with Bast, and he's just laying there fucking wide-eyed, fucking scared shitless, laying in bed. After Bast's like, hey, we can be friends. Like, you need anything? You need a nightcap, some extra blankets? He's like, like, fucking, it's terrified.
No, thank you, sir.
It's kind of interesting in the sense that we were in this place at the beginning of the book, and now the ripple effect of this deepened silence and fear, and it's deepened further to where it's encapsulated another person. You know what I'm saying? Like, so Chronicler's fear deepens the fear. And it's the silence in itself is how freaking scared he is, and then layer that on with Kvothe waiting to die, and it's kind of ties in that repeat performance, but it also ties it in where it's now brought in more. It's deeper. It's more, powerful, I guess you could say.
Well, in the fact that there's fear brought to it, I thought was a new aspect of it, or at least one that I didn't pick up on last time. Another thing that I picked up on that was just one particular line where he said that frightened silence was an alloy. He said it was.
They made an alloy of sorts, a harmony.
Right. But specifically, he said that it was in the sword that hung above the bar.
Oh, that was the third silence. He's like, the third silence was not as easy thing to notice. If you listen for an hour, you might begin to feel it in the thick stone walls of the empty tap room and in the flat gray metal of the sword that hung behind the bar. It was in the dim candlelight that filled the upstairs room with dancing shadows. It was in the mad pattern of crumpled memoir that lay fallen and unforgotten atop the desk. And it was in the hands of the man who sat there, pointedly ignoring the pages he had written and discarded long ago.
Makes me think that, along the lines of what you guys are saying, that there may, him saying that it might be in the stone, that it is in the stone of the walls, that it's in the sword, it's in his, all the things that are Kvothe or having to do with Kvothe, and that it's in the stones. I don't know, is it that Kvothe built that place, and did he put that magic in there? I don't know. Anyway.
It almost does feel like anything that goes into the threshold gets, I don't know, man, gets put into this state of, mutedness or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. There's definitely
Cut
something
flower
going on in here.
silence.
It was in the patient cut flower sound of a man who's waiting to die.
One other thing, the guy who reads the book, his name's on Audible. His name is Nick Podell, Podehl. And I thought I'd bring it up because there's a lot of other fantasy books that he reads. So check it out.
No,
What do you-
I will
should-
not. I don't want to read
should
any
we
of his
do
stupid
it?
other books that he reads.
Should we read the second book, do you think? Or just want to stop here?
I think we just stop
I
here.
was
I
gonna-
think that was good enough.
I was going to go on. It's a
I
good
feel
joke,
like
Tim, but
I feel like
gonna-
the best thing to do to people is like to give the impression that you're gonna go through the entire series, but then like stop a third of the way through and then be like, "No, we're not gonna do it anymore."
This is like so many rap videos that is to be continued.
Yeah, never. There is no.
How many I was gonna say how many volume ones, of rap albums are there as well? Where it's volume one, they never came out with a volume two.
We'll do like Rothfuss. The second season will be out in a year from now, and then it actually will be out in like 7 years from now, and the third season will be out 10 years after that.
Yeah, we could do that. How do you like that?
Oh, we already mapped out the second
the outline.
the second season and the third season. We'll just boom, a year from now we'll do the second, and a year after that we'll do the third. And
Actually,
15 years later, like, what the fuck is going on?
I think even better, we've recorded it. We just haven't released it yet. We're waiting for the right time.
Yeah. Still editing.
It's all
it.
done.
All I gotta do is edit it. By edit it, I mean record it. Fucking research everything.
No,
fucking put it on tape, and
once we record it, once we start recording, it's going to go by in no time, guys. It's all up here right now. It's all
no. By recording, we mean we have to get that old VHS camcorder and put it in front of the laptop and hit record, and then let them run. Yep. We just haven't done that part of it yet. But
when you guys said cassette, I thought we were going to get one of those old cassette recorders where you push the record and the play button at the same time. Then when you stop and eject, it pops up.
Well, I like the idea of having the visual of an old school camcorder literally recording that this is on digital. We decided to put it to analog just for you guys.
Yeah.
Hopefully you can find a VCR somewhere to run this, or reel to reel, however we decide.
Really cool thing we're doing with the second book is they're all on the little fucking tape decks. They're all on tape decks, and we'll mail them out to you one each week with a full episode on each tape deck.
And if
we're not putting any of them out online. None of them are going to be out online. Only on tape.
If people find mistakes, just send them back. We'll correct the the mistake on each tape.
Yeah.
Send it back out to you good as new.
We'll dub it over. Yep. We'll dub it. Yeah, nice. Yeah, that's a great idea. Forget listening.
The low price of $155 an episode.
Forget listening to this in your car or on a hike, unless you have a Walkman. You got those old Walkmans.
Boombox,
you can,
man, an old school boombox. Fucking spread the word, and then when people are like, "Hey, man, what's that awesome podcast you're listening to? Oh, it's great. Just go online, order the tape deck." The tape deck.
You got people that have never even fucking seen one of these things. They have to acquire antiquated technology to be able to. I actually personally really like the idea of Laserdisc because I don't even know where you're going to find it, and I like how big they are. Yeah, it's a great idea. That's very difficult to utilize.
So, hey Dan, could you refresh us on some things that are coming up early in the second book?
Man, I don't even remember where it starts off. It's going to jump back into the university, obviously, and it's got another prologue, which is very similar to the epilogue here that we just covered. Starts off with him in the bar, and they have a little short interlude, and then it kind of just jumps back in. I don't remember though. I haven't read ahead.
I think he's.
You heard him, guys. You're going to just have to go into it and listen to the next episode.
I think he's reunited.
Dan's got nothing for us.
I think he's reunited with his parents, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that what happened?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's
like a birthday party, little surprise.
It starts off with the big zombie scene.
They have a birthday party and zombies jump out of the cake.
Zombie birthday party.
Oh nice. Yeah, and then the scene where Pike finally hunts him down and comes after him again.
Yeah, I do like the idea that Pike is like running shit. You know what I mean? Like he's like the Al Capone of Carbine.
He's like, I'm not a rapist. Pike is definitely a rapist.
Yeah, he's seen it. He has seen it. I don't know if he's got evidence, but he has seen it.
Yeah, they don't specifically mention that Pike is, but I assume he is.
So they out him. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. And then he's got to explain himself in his 3-piece suit, walking around with diamond rings and gold necklaces, smoking stogies.
All of a sudden, he's got a fucking thick Chicago accent.
I feel like he would. He'd be wearing, gaiters, fur coat. He's got a floppy hat. He's walking around. He's real showy, real ostentatious.
Great big feather coming out of it, a yellow feather.
Yeah. Driving a Cadillac, even in this world.
Yeah.
Hey,
he owns the first car in the fucking history of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, we fucking knocked out the first book. Fucking
took no time.
It take 22 episodes.
Super easy.
Well, yeah, and we hope you guys enjoyed it. And if you did, or if you didn't, come back anyway because the next one's going to be even better.
Yeah, I know you enjoyed my stuff. I apologize for Tim and Fitz, but there's nothing I can do about that.
Yeah. Well, Dan will continue to be under this illusion of how the world perceives him and how he perceives himself. But it's okay. He's doing what Bast insinuated as the best course of action. So Dan, I'm sure we'll continue on that path. And
fake it till you make it.
Yeah. Well, he's just going to fake it forever.
I already made it. But yes, I will continue to keep making it. I will continue to make it so that I continue to make it.
And the plan is Rothfuss doesn't release book 3. We're going to do it for you. So
yeah.
Be ready for that.
Yeah, I'll wing it, and I'll just tell you exactly what I think is going to happen in each imaginary chapter.
Yeah, we're going to slowly develop. We're already fleshing out the Jack in the Box franchise part of the world. That's a big part of book 3, along with the boy band. So that's going to take a big, sort of a
there's
central
an entire
role.
chapter. There's an entire chapter where there's a massive line at one of the Jack in the Boxes, and there's just everybody's yelling, they're getting mad and angry, there's a lot of tension, and Denna's trying to fucking get everybody to get in gear, get the fries out, get the Cokes fucking done, fucking make those burgers, shit's falling on the ground. It's intense. You're gonna love it.
I thought the line was for the bathroom. I thought we were going to get a big, because I know we have a chapter that's all about bathrooms and how they function and how the equine, the bowels of this of these people, how that functions. We need all these things. There's a lot of hygiene that's going to be in book 3, so we're going to get a lot of that.
Yeah, so it's going to be good times. You're going to really like it. But on that note, I guess we'll just leave you at the end of book 1, and you can shove that down your face too. All right, peace out, folks.
Yep.
Wise Man's Fear coming up later.
Yep.